Oh, this is what Reason Rips, I think, was talking about. This is pretty insane. This is kind of wild. The thing that annoys me the most is I always say this. People always talk about like I tread the line or whatever. If I know what's allowed or what's not allowed, I'll never go near that. I've never tried to tread the line, or push the line or whatever on anything. Because why the fuck would I risk getting banned? This is the fact that he feels so safe to just operate in the most unhinged manner possible is crazy to me.
Oh, you found his account?
Today,
So somebody I think was talking in his Twitch chat. I say talking. I don't even know what he said exactly. I don't think it was anything that crazy, but
Found his account?
Today, I will show you 3 ways you can use your smart.
Wait, this is the guy?
First thing we want to do is download the U2 VPN app, which we can do through the first link in the description.
What are you gonna do, bro? Write a petition? Let's do a crusade, he says. Let's do a fucking crusade, he says. Let's hang Hasan and Mamdani for treason, he says. The fuck are you?
I guarantee you, just because California is such a cuck state, you probably have to have like orange tips or something on fake guns. But it's just like, this is like insane to me.
Gonna do? Go on a fishing expedition? Try to fucking put malware in my phone? Is that what you're gonna do?
What if this guy did, and that's why Hasan is so brain broken now? Because this guy put malware.
You skinny bitch. Ugly ass.
Oh, this guy is a white guy. He must be. I don't give a fuck what his name is, and I don't even care what his skin color is. Zaid Jilani. He's the whitest of all whites. As far as I can tell, the electability problem for Abdul al-Sayed is that he's Muslim. A guy who appeared on the ballot as Barack Hussein Obama won Michigan twice. Once in 2012, which was not a blue wave year. Do you think that most people saw... I know that like Republicans like to wheel out that middle name, but most people in the United States of America, and by most I mean 99%, saw Obama as a black guy. What? Saeed is not running on any extreme left ideas. What is this account? Ugh. What about demilitarize the police? Does that work for you, Matt? Supporting unlimited taxpayer-funded war for the Israeli state is far more politically toxic than defund the police. Oh my God. I don't even know what the fuck this this virtue signaling shit is cringe. Again, the United States is not a signatory to the ICC, so we wouldn't even arrest him for war crimes. Like, if Mamdani would arrest, I don't even know what to say. If he would arrest Netanyahu, like the U.S. president could theoretically come in and bust his ass, and I don't even know if the U.S. president would be in the wrong for that. On whose authority are you arresting him? On an international body that has, at this point in time, no authority over the United States? Like,
So I was reading your interview over the weekend and wanted to ask you more about your conversations with the your legal department about potentially arresting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I just want to know just what your feelings are when you look at, for example, your administration also reaching out to the Prime Minister of, the ambassador of Iran, just how you, I guess, reconcile the two of being so critical of the Israeli Prime Minister, but at the same time meeting with the ambassador of Iran.
So I want to first clear up a few things. Our administration did not reach out to the Prime Minister of Iran. Our administration received a request from the Iranian consulate, and as soon as I heard of that, I made it clear that we are not meeting and we will not meet with the Israeli consulate here in New York City. And when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, we're speaking about someone who's the subject of an international criminal court arrest warrant. And he's the subject of this arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity, for war crimes, and he's the architect of the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza as Israel's Prime Minister. These are not facts of my personal assessment, they are facts of public record. And I believe that when someone is charged with an international criminal court warrant, it's something that should be taken seriously, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or it's Vladimir Putin or whomever else. What I've also made clear is that my administration will follow all applicable local laws. That is our commitment. That is something that we will follow through on.
oh, so he's just given politics speak or whatever. There's not... He's just doing politics, whatever. I mean, it's still.
When it comes to an adherence to local law. And that's all I have to add on that.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to Heather from
Are you
News 12.
are you looking at arresting anybody else on that list of people who've committed international war crimes?
My point is that if someone is charged with a warrant by the
Weren't there only 3 people when that was announced, and the other 2 was it like Sinwar and Hanea or whatever, and they're both dead?
International Criminal Court for these kinds of crimes, that's something I believe that should be honored. And I've also said that we will follow our local laws.
Thank you. Last question.
Jesus Christ. He said we are not meeting with the Israelite consulate. Wait, did he actually? Hold on, I missed that if that's... No way, hold on.
Wanted to ask you more about your conversations with the your legal department about potentially arresting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I just want to know just what your feelings are when you look at, for example, your administration also reaching out to the Prime Minister of, the ambassador of Iran, just how you, reconcile the two of being so critical of the Israeli Prime Minister, but at the same time meeting with the ambassador of Iran.
So I want to first clear up a few things. Our administration did not reach out to the Prime Minister of Iran. Our administration received a request from the Iranian consulate. And as soon as I heard of that, I made it clear that we are not meeting and we will not meet with the Israeli consulate here in New York City. And when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, we're speaking about someone who's the subject of an international criminal court arrest warrant. And he's the subject of this arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity, for war crimes, and he's the architect of the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza as Israel's Prime Minister. These are not facts of my personal assessment, they are facts of public record. And I believe that when someone is charged with an international criminal court warrant, it's something that should be taken seriously.
You missed it again. Wait, fuck, hold on.
Of the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza as Israel's Prime Minister. These are not facts of my personal assessment, they are facts of public record. And I believe that court arrest warrant. And he's the subject of this arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity. As soon as I heard of that, I made it clear that we are not meeting and we will not meet with the Israeli consulate here in New York City. And when it comes to Benjamin...
He says Israeli consulate, but it sounds like he misspoke. He meant Iranian, but he didn't say Israelite. What? I didn't miss it. You guys are retarded.
New York City. And I made it clear that we are not meeting and we will not meet with the Israeli consulate here in New York City.
The Israeli consulate. Fuck you guys. Jesus. According to Bobby John, 11.3% of r/Hasan Piker's active users have also posted in Ethan Klein snark subreddits. Since the first H3 snark subreddit opened, 11.3% of everyone active in r/Hasan Piker has also posted in the H3 snark subs. 9,478 shared users out of 83,636. 2,337 users have 10 plus posts/comments on both sides. 8 have 1,000 plus in each community. 334 have 100 plus in each community. Jesus. Christ. Bruh, this shit is insane and nobody will give a fuck. It's so fucking toxic. I just hate how toxic the politics I'm involved in has to be, because obviously it's like radioactive, but it's like, I don't want to do this. This is not like my beat anymore, but like they drag you down to this like the most disgusting... Wait, hold on. It's r/New York City. Wait, oh no, is it r/NYT? Sorry. Okay. Bloop. Okay, we have this. I can hear Destiny's anger throughout this entire conversation. Holy shit, LeMayo, this guy holds his own.
All right, guys.
Oh, God. Watch this until 3:09:05. Oh, 20 minutes of Hasan Slappa. Really? Really?
By the Japanese
2 months ago.
was one of the most devastating attacks on American soil. But just a few decades earlier, Japan and the United States were allies in World War I. So how did things get so bad between them? It all comes down to oil. To explain, we need to go all the way back to the 19th century. Once an isolated nation, Japan underwent a makeover of sorts to compete with the West. Known as the Meiji Restoration, it embraced industrialization, built
Oh
up
my God. That's when they weren't allowed to carry their samurai swords anymore. In my animes, they all reference this.
its military and restored Japan's emperor as the powerful head of state. Aided by 2 successful wars, Japan aggressively expanded its empire. The Japanese were becoming an imperial superpower until the Great Depression hit. You see, Japan is an island nation with few natural resources, so it depends on international trade to keep its economy afloat. The economic crisis put a stop to all that. Japan was in a bind, so its military leaders, who called the shots at this point, decided the best defense against financial ruin would be a good offense. They would invade nearby China, particularly Manchuria, for its plentiful resources like iron, soybeans, and land. Lots and lots of unsettled land. So what does this all have to do with the United States? Well, the US was a long-standing Chinese ally, and it watched uneasily from the sidelines as the two nations clashed in the 1930s. But America wanted nothing to do with another war, so it just denounced Japan's aggression. Tensions rose in 1937 when Japan invaded the Chinese city of Nanjing. In doing so, they attacked an American gunboat, killing 3 and wounding dozens.
Wow.
Disturbing images coming out of war-torn China
Whoa.
further swayed American opinion against Japan. In response, America attacked Japan's resources. They imposed economic sanctions of aircraft, scrap metal, and other items crucial to Japan's military. The US hoped that
Just so you know, the tide has shifted now as far as manufacturing.
I might be insane and retarded, but I swear you've watched this. I feel like I have watched this before, or watched him watch it, but I don't remember why. This is an ad assignment, though, so...
military.
He says if I don't watch it, he'll take down my YouTube channel.
The US hoped that
Just so you know, the tide has shifted now as far as manufacturing goes, and now China can do that to America if it chooses to do so. Just something to consider.
sanctions would stop Japanese expansion. But Japan doubled down, invading French Indochina in 1940 and then teaming up with Germany and Italy.
Wait, I'm sorry, hold on.
The US hoped that
Just so you know, the tide has shifted now as far as manufacturing goes, and now China can do that to America if it chooses to do so. Just something to consider.
sanctions would stop Japanese expansion. But Japan
It would be mutually painful, though. I'm pretty sure it would hurt China quite a bit as well, right? We're still... we must be the largest importer, right? China's largest... importers or exporters? Largest export partners... China's top trading partners. The U.S. makes up 11.1% of China's total exports. I didn't really pay much attention to this because I don't know fuck all about China, and just because of all the whatever random shit I don't cover. I looked into this a little bit more over the LibCon weekend because one of the keynote speakers was a guy from Hong Kong. We kind of just like totally let that whole place go, didn't we? It kind of just... Did we just kind of like... Okay. When? I don't know, like 4-ish years ago, I think? 5-ish years ago? There's been like, I think they started to do a bunch of government crackdowns. I think it was like pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, and then it's just been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Where they're like, kind of like tightening the government control over the place.
and doubled down, invading French Indochina in 1940 and then teaming up with Germany and Italy. Why those
Yeah. I learned in middle school that Chiang Kai-shek was the good guy, by the way, and that was the verbatim phrase used by my teacher, good guy. I mean, Chiang
We didn't even learn China existed in any of my history classes, but
Kai-shek during World War II was not a bad guy. I mean, he wasn't a great guy, but he definitely was not the worst guy in the equation either. I mean, this was a nationalist bourgeois force at the end of the day, but they were a force within China that was seeking out emancipation. As a matter of fact, famously, the USSR also wanted, the Soviets wanted the CCP, the communist CPC, the Communist Party of China, to align, because at the time they had no manpower in the early formation, and they wanted them to align with the KMT nationalist forces, because the KMT nationalist forces were also seen as an emancipatory force or even a revolutionary force potentially.
Revolution.
Socialism.
Oh.
The Communist Party of China grew from the ranks of the KMT. The KMT was a far more powerful force in Chinese politics at the time. And part of the reason was, of course, because they had the backing of the elites. In some respects, the elites that also did not want to live in a country that was war-torn, led in parts by warlords and in other parts by concessions and European powers. So initially...
Emancipation.
Initially, they weren't the worst guys, technically, I guess, in comparison to who else was running the show. KMT was failing the people, hence they joined CPC. Buddy, it was not the... it was the CPC that joined the KMT. KMT's forces were far, far larger.
I don't know fuck all about Chinese history. I can't even comment on this.
Than the CPC. The Soviets absolutely wanted to...
Okay, fuck. I do need to talk about this at some point. Put this on the back burner. Everybody, all my retards in chat are saying like, the British gave back Hong Kong in 1991. They gave back blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm talking about. And clearly nobody here knows what I'm talking about at all, which is another reason I didn't even know that much about it. So I guess, yeah, but I think it was around, somebody said in chat it was 2019, but I think like increasingly over the last several years, like China has been like strangling the island of Hong Kong and has been like doing more and more to bring the government and all the people there under a more repressive like Beijing style rule. After saying they would not do that, they'd like let it be more independent. There were big protests. There were people that got arrested. They're like doing the political prisoner thing more, whatever. I'm not talking about just the handover shit in fucking 1991. I'm talking about this shit, but. It was just a thing. We briefly looked at it at the time, and then I never really covered it. I haven't really looked into it at all. There was just a guy from Hong Kong that was doing one of the keynotes, and I listened. That's a bit okay. Fuck you.
Get the CPC to shut the fuck up about the KMT's like counter-revolutionary behavior early on. There are numerous instances where like they were.
What's your best guess for the country that's handling Hasan? Is it China? I don't know. I don't have a theory of mind for people this far gone. I just can't even imagine it. Okay, I'm liberal. I'm liberal to the core, baby. I can't even imagine not being it, so I'm not sure.
Dude, just chill the fuck out. Oh, you're talking about the Civil War. Okay, that's different. Yeah, no, I thought you were... We're talking about like the Sino-Japanese the war.
Sino.
Came to under Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen was actually okay and compromised many points of the communist wing. Yes.
Two countries? Because like Japan, they were controlled by militaristic governments, obsessed with conquest and driven by a deep sense of nationalism. The final straw came in July of 1941, when President Franklin D. Roosevelt announced a trade embargo on...
Yeah, by the way, the textbook also literally said something. You're right about that. Textbook says Germany and Japan surrendered after the atomic bombs, but Germany had lost, Berlin had fell before...
You're right. Part of the problem is that a lot of the local journalists have been arrested or fled, so the news getting out has been limited by comparison. That's partially true. Another huge part, and this has been true for decades... This has been true for decades, but Americans have been mind-fucked into thinking it's not true because of kind of like the lefty kick-up right now. American people, American citizens, do not give a fuck about foreign policy. They don't give a fuck about how their policy impacts the rest of the world until we get terrorist attacked. We don't give a fuck what's going on in other parts of the world. Now, right now, we have a weird feeling that Americans are very much in tune with foreign policy because lefties kick up a lot of dirt about Israel-Palestine, but talk to any of them about it. They don't know fuck all about Israel-Palestine. None of these people do. They don't know anything about it. It's just a wedge issue. When I say it's just a wedge issue, when I say this, I don't mean that like they've decided to focus on this issue because this is a thing that they think they can use to drive apart the Democrats and the far lefties or whatever to fuck with the politicians. That's part of it. But what I mean is it's like the issue has not like a simulacrum. It's like it's a caricature of an issue. There's not even like none of these guys talk about like this is what we need to do to solve Israel-Palestine. This is the leader that we need to support. This is the way forward. They don't even talk about it. It's like a thing that you just like allude to. So for Americans not understanding what's going on in Hong Kong, that's actually par for the course because Americans don't know what's going on in Israel-Palestine. We don't know what's going on in Ukraine, Russia. We don't know what's going on anywhere in fucking Africa. Like Americans don't give a fuck about any of it, which is tragic and sad and disgusting. But that's just how Americans are.
Or the atomic bombs. So there's also that part of it as well. that is another funny part about that textbook that was just like objectively wrong.
You say Americans, but this is true of basically everyone on the planet. The difference is that America has 2 oceans and no continental rivals. Foreign policy has no true salience. Sure, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with you. Descriptively, what I'm saying is true, though. But yeah, it's because we're so separated by people. Yeah,
they
are separated by oceans, not people.
It perhaps a little too much. Like, oh, we tied this up with a neat little bow. You know, we just dropped the 2 atomic bombs, and everyone was like, oh my god, we're surrendering. You're so powerful. No, that's not what happened at all. But it's fine, I guess.
Oil. An oil shortage was an absolute disaster for Japan, who relied on imports for 90% of its supply. Not only would this destroy the Japanese economy, but it would put its military at a literal standstill, which meant no more expansion. Japan resented the US for meddling in its quest to dominate Asia. The only solution left for the Japanese was total war. Crush the US fleet in the Pacific and then occupy Southeast Asia and claim its resources. And so, on December 7th, 1941, Japan launched its surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. At first, it seemed like a win for the Japanese, destroying or damaging 21 US ships and more than 300 aircraft, and killing around 2,400 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and...
Damn, this kind of makes Japan look like they were backed into a corner and had no option. I mean, they did have an option, which was not be Nazi Germany in China and Korea. No.
I wonder, something that would be so interesting to me is I wonder if in the next like half decade or whatever, if these lefties gain more power, if we're going to rewrite the weird revisionist history that people do when it comes to America and Japan. Like that Sean and Jen video, people talk about how America was so evil and terrible, nuking Japan twice, and they were really ready to surrender, and the emperor was trying to get the messages out, but Truman and all the evil U.S. soldiers were blocking the radio waves, and they just were bloodthirsty. They wanted to nuke and murder all the Japanese. But like, it was a fascist empire that was fucking raping and pillaging at any part of Asia that it could send a soldier to, okay? It was fucking unhinged. But for some reason, they get like they get a pass by all the lefties who want to like demonize America and the nukes. I wonder if that'll change over the next like several years, I guess. I don't know.
Definitely, they were not backed into a corner. They were not the good guys in any way, shape, or form, okay? I mean, they did the Holocaust to China. If you noticed, at first, until they started threatening Western territories, Western colonial conquest, until they started threatening Western territories that were also taken over through colonial conquest, America and the Western world was like, oh, stop it. We really don't like what you're doing to China, but like, who cares? Okay? It was until it was...
I don't know if you've noticed, but there is so much signal boosting of anti-American sentiment online that doesn't even make sense. It's American exceptionalism, but as a weapon. Some guy emailed me. I didn't... He even titled it Schizo Post, but...
Only after...
Let me finish a few of these. Hold on.
After they started frustrating Western territories, did they decide to do something about it? The Japanese were actually so bad in China that envoys from the Nazi government in Nanjing...
I'm going to use the restroom real quick. Hold on.
Actually took in Chinese refugees to keep them away from the Japanese. They were horribly monstrous. Yeah. Japanese were specifically the cause of 14 to 20 million Chinese casualties in World War II. That's not including the other countries they conquered too, by the way. Yeah, the Japanese were really, really fucking ruthless.
Civilians. But the success was short-lived. The United States declared war on Japan on December 8th, 1941. Not long after, the Japanese would realize the mistake it made at Pearl Harbor. Their bombers had failed to deliver a mortal blow to the Pacific Fleet, missing oil tanks, ammunition sites, repair facilities, and aircraft carriers. Just 6 months later, remnants of the U.S. fleet...
No, the whole like kawaii shit is... That's what happens when you become servile to American interests. Okay, post-World War II, if you were like, oh, okay, we're now doing whatever you want us to do, sir. America just let you do any kind of whitewashing you want to. This is actually important to understand the Chinese perspective on a little bit, because like, imagine being fucking China, okay? Century of humiliation. Japan comes and does the Holocaust to you, okay? And then America drops atom bombs on Japan. You're like, oh, hell yeah, that's awesome, right? That was their perspective at the time. And I think still to this day, that's kind of their perspective. The Chinese perspective is like, hell yeah, atom bombs. They should have done worse, right? I can't fault them for having that framework, regardless of my own personal opinion on the utilization of atom bombs. But like, you come into that situation, you're able to develop your country under unbearable conditions, civil war, okay? You gain autonomy, you gain sovereignty in the aftermath of that. And then there's a tremendous growing pains in the process, right? Cultural revolution is devastating in many respects, right? The collectivization efforts, obviously...
Just as a heads up, the idea that, can you imagine like these massive wars ending and nobody's held accountable and they don't have to pay for all their war crimes? We tried that, okay? It was called the end of World War I, okay? And it led to, spoiler alert, that's not even the right button, bro. That's because I'm out of practice. It led to World War II. After World War II, we were like, okay, maybe that way didn't work. And he's like, oh, well, Japan just became subservient to America, blah, blah. Japan grew into a massive economy and a massive country in its own right. Like, I think everybody came out of World War II better, generally speaking, than they did World War I. But, you know, who am I to say, you know?
End up with the last time there's tremendous amounts of famine in the country. It's the last time, but it's still, you know, it's still horrifying when you're experiencing this process, right? When you're going through it. And you have these like unacknowledged atrocities. Many Americans don't even know that the Chinese were involved in World War II, or even far before World War II, or were devastated by Japanese imperialism. And then this country that this island nation that did this to you, okay, becomes an economic powerhouse. Has America write its constitution, becomes an economic powerhouse. America then takes some of the war criminal research and then uses it in Korea, and that conflict is inevitably going to spill over into your country. While you're still licking your wounds from...
These guys, remember, are all opposed to U.S. involvement in the Korean War. All of them will say it. Also, be ready for more North Korean propaganda from people like Hasan saying things that, like, actually, North Korea's doing pretty good as, like, a place to live. Like, they actually, you know, it's not the best, but, they actually do pretty good there, you know? And yeah, the government's kind of, like, oppressive a little bit, but, like, not as bad as Palantir.
From World War II, while, you're going through your own version, your own civil war, okay, against these nationalist forces. And then you have to muster up enough of your ascetic and unbelievably poor forces to go and defend Korea, and in certain and you do actually end up achieving a bunch of military successes in that endeavor.
Holy brain broken!
You do actually
hold on.
End up.
Hasan, can you talk about how Japan wanted to create Israel in Manchuria? Everything is Israel Palestine.
Achieving a bunch of military successes in that endeavor. You can't even fully defeat the KMT because they steal all the gold and they move to Taiwan, the island of Formosa. Okay, and before you can go and take over Taiwan, you have to now deal with the Korean flank. And yes,
when he says you didn't know Japan did all this against China, is he referring to just the USA? Did U.S. schools not cover this part of World War II? No, I feel like not much. No, generally speaking, not much.
Mao's son died in Korea, defending Korea. Anyway, all that shit happens, and the Western world, after you've gone through these tremendous hardships, tremendous pain, okay, for decades and decades, you just dial in and you're like, nope, we're just going to focus on development. We're going to focus on building our country, okay? And there are still instances where, regardless of your allegiance with America at times, and regardless of playing a role in American imperialism in the region, which they did, okay. They were very calculated, very strategic, and America thought that they could exploit the Sino-Soviet split, which China absolutely leaned into as well, right? You do all this stuff. Yeah. The rest of the world doesn't know any of the hardships. They only talk about how you killed hundreds of millions of people. Mao killed hundreds of millions of fucking people. This guy who's like the founding father of your country, the modern China, the People's Republic of China, that you have tremendous respect for.
Also, remember, when it came time to talk about Bandera and Ukraine, it was completely unacceptable that any Eastern European could ever view the Nazis favorably. It was fucking disgusting. They'll talk about how the Lehi, an extremist, like kind of militant faction of the pre-IDF in Israel, that these guys were talking to Nazis at some point in order to align with them and fight the blah, blah, blah. They wanted to team up with Nazis. No excuse, no reason, just horrible bad guy behavior. But on their side, well, hold on. This is like the founder of fucking modern China. Okay? Yeah, tens of millions of people, but you got to be considerate, okay? They were going through some hard times. Like, there's always infinite justification and excuse on their end for the behavior, but never on the other end, obviously.
Okay. And everyone's like, oh, dude, you're basically like Adolf Hitler. Your country was founded basically by Adolf Hitler. They killed so many of your own people directly at gunpoint. Like, what the fuck? Meanwhile, the real country that did the Holocaust to you, that was the Adolf Hitler to you, is Japan. And they're the most kawaii country on the planet. Everyone's like, oh, I love Japan. I love Japan. Japan is awesome. They've never done anything wrong. Yeah, it would probably piss me off too, you know? It'd probably be very, very frustrating to see the Western world look at this country and look at this country that has done unbelievable amounts of pain that you have a direct connection to, that you experienced only a couple generations ago, only 1 to 2 generations ago, and you've gone through this like tremendous fucking hardship. And the Western world that refused to acknowledge any of that shit is still saying you're the bad guys over and over again. Meanwhile, Japan developed, sure, as a vassal state, okay, became this competitive economy, maybe grew a little bit too much for America's liking. Then America came in and was like, enough, right? brother, say you love Japan. I mean, it's been a long time since, and has great. Yeah, I mean, I think Japan is dope as well. I'm agnostic. I'm a centrist. I love China. I love Japan. I think they both have wonderful qualities, and there are definitely things that we can learn from each country.
Oh,
okay, but if we're
beautiful.
talking about it within the framework of World War II, I mean, they were Adolf Hitler. They were Japanese Adolf Hitler. Okay,
I mean, they were literally allied with Adolf.
the fact that I have to explain it as they were Japanese Adolf Hitler is an indication that people don't learn about the horrifying war crimes of Japan in general. As a Japanese person, Japan has had has a rough fucking year. Lamau shamefully hiding in the bushes, hoping nobody notices me. Yeah, I mean, your current leadership is really, really bad. Japan used Korea as a rape colony, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I mean, this is also true. The current leader actually, unironically, refused to acknowledge those war crimes and famously spoke out against it. I think she might have even written a book. Takaichi, I believe, wrote a book about how Japanese the Japanese history is actually totally infallible, and it's ridiculous that people even criticize it. Yeah, she's a hardcore revisionist and very, very right wing. What's always also been funny is that they still have unbelievable amounts of racism and smoke for the Chinese and Koreans, even after everything that they did. But that's totally for that's for a separate date to discuss. It's like, bro, how can you be like?
I wish I had gone. I need to go back to Asia more, talk to more people. I will say, when I was in South Korea and Taiwan, but it could just be a really limited selection of people I talk to. My impression, I've said this before, my impression would always be like, oh man, you guys must all hate like Japanese people or whatever. But I felt like everybody felt like South Koreans were stuck up, and then South Koreans felt like they were better than everybody else. And that was like the feeling I got just in the few people. But I'm mainly speaking to like younger people, or whatever. So maybe it's different between older people. But South Koreans were kind of like racist against everybody. That was when we were on the bus with Naniwa, and that one old white dude fucking spat at us. Those guys, or the old South Korea guy, was crazy. And then yeah, but I don't know. I can't. I'm generalizing from like 10 people I spoke to. So
how can you still have hatred in your heart for these other countries when you were the one who was destroying them? It's really crazy.
But then also, like in South Korea, they hate North Koreans too, which I thought was weird. I don't know if that's an American thing. I don't even know what it would be like. Like if a person escapes from North Korea and makes it to South Korea, apparently you can tell the way they speak is a little bit different. You kind of tell where they're from. And then like people just think they're kind of like weird, and they kind of shun them. But I guess in my mind, it would have been like, oh my God, you escaped my long lost brother. But apparently they just don't like it very much. I'm like, damn. I don't know. Jeez.
Bro, you're anti-Asian American? Yeah, famously. Do the Koreans have a similar level of animosity? Yes, the Koreans are not exactly... I mean, they're South Koreans, not North Koreans, but South Koreans' perspective on Japan has shifted over the years. They're also another vassal state to America.
Jesus.
They've actually developed better relations with Japan over the years. But I would say by and large, South Koreans still obviously don't really like Japan.
It's just like crazy to speak with such broad strokes about like the people too, because like people can have all sorts of different opinions that are totally divorced from a country's history. Not every person lives. In fact, I feel like one thing that's consistently been true for me as I've talked to people, traveled, learned, or whatever, is histories are way less sticky than I would have imagined when it comes to how people view other people. That I remember, like, when you talk about, like, these genocides or these big wars or whatever, that people seem to get over, like, catastrophic wars and stuff way quicker than I would have thought. At least in America, we always hear that, like, oh, you're breeding future terrorists, and if you attack these people, they'll come for you in the future. It's like, generally, that doesn't seem to happen. As long as, like, states are allowed to settle and then kind of, like, be peaceful and then pursue their own, like, state programs, their economic, culture agenda or whatever, people tend to, like, chill out as long as there's no active conflict going on. But this idea of like, oh, Kurdish people hate all these people, and all these people hate these people, and all these people because of in World War II, and like, I don't really think it works that way. Especially World War II is a long time ago. Like, obviously you can follow a lot of conflict from now to World War II, but World War II, that's a long ass time ago, man.
No, there's polling on the South Korean attitudes towards Japan. It's improved over the years. So
score a key victory
even the public's opinion has changed.
Japan at the Battle of Midway, turning the tide of the war against the once mighty Japanese.
Like, I think one thing maybe is you would imagine, based on what Hasan is saying, so like the Japanese and Americans must fucking love each other because they're our vassal state and we gave Japan so much and blah, blah, blah. But from like things that I've heard, in a lot of Asian countries, Japan especially, and I think there were even big protests over it, they tend to have a really negative view of Americans in that country because Americans who, I'm generalizing, well, I'm not even generalizing. I think these are like fucking news stories and stuff. When soldiers would like leave the base and they would go into Japan to party and shit, they were kind of aggressive. They would drink a lot. They'd be really rowdy, and people just had like a very, very negative impression of the base in Okinawa is something I'm thinking of, especially. They just had like a very, very negative impression of Americans there, and I think there were protests even at one point to try to get, I don't know, close that base down or what, but. Absolutely not true. In polling, Japan is the highest approval of America out of all of Asia. In terms of like approving of the country, yeah, sure. But I'm just saying like individual people or groups of people on the ground, like I don't know if like a country's view of another country is necessarily the same as like the people's view of another people that they're like interacting with. I'm just saying there's like a little bit of a separation there. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to. I'd have to spend a lot more time there to know for sure. Maybe it's just Okinawa. Some guy emailed me this video July 7th. Oh, a few weeks ago. And he was just bothered because apparently this guy took a break on his YouTube channel. I don't know who this guy is. Reject Convenience. I'm only bringing this up because somebody in chat was like, there's weird anti-American propaganda that sneaks into everything, but...
have fizzled out quickly. If things that the reason I make these side quest videos, because I love to share the wide array of things that have impacted me. Some passions have fizzled out quickly, such as my interest in playing video games. Others have stood the test of time, like my love for making these videos. For most of my life, I had been fascinated by space. In fact, some might argue that it was a large part of my personality, but it wasn't something that stuck around. When I wrote down the idea for this video 3 years ago, I had lost almost all interest in space, and I wanted to explore why. What caused me to lose such a defining passion? Was it something that I would ever get back? I wanted to try to answer this question with a reflection on human behavior.
I watched one of the LibCon vids and you said your mom flew on the Looking Glass. Do you know what her AFSC is? Air Force Security Command? I have no idea what that means. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
I've always
I
been
can probably find it the next time I go visit her, I'll look at a picture. It might be there.
rather optimistic about humanity. It's something that's been taken advantage of many times throughout my life, but for some reason, I still believe in the best of us. That said, there are certain topics that challenge my optimism, nothing more so than the idea of weapons. They can be used to protect our communities.
Ask her what her job title was. She did electronics on the KC-135, which I think is a rebranded EC-135 or EC-130, KC-130. She did electronics and radio stuff. I remember we went to, at Offutt, they had a reunion for the KC... I think the Looking Glass one was rebranded as a KC-135, right? Not an EC-135? Maybe they rebranded as an EC-135. Nope. Whatever that plane is, they had like a reunion for people that flew that mission. And then the part that she worked at, you could see like, it was like you open the side of the box and it's like 50 million switches or whatever. Kind of like in Top Gun when the guy takes the grate off and there are all the switches. It looked like that.
But more often than not, they're used.
She was a mechanic or an engineer. She did something with electronics, like an electronic engineer. I don't know if it was an engineer now, but it was something with electronics and radio stuff, I think.
To tear them apart. For as long as humans have existed, we have justified the need for weapons. The first one was probably a caveman with a rock. But as time went on, we kept evolving, kept creating better and more violent ways to hurt each other. These tools have fractured our planet into artificial lines in a strange attempt to separate where our communities start and end. There's an old, probably made-up story I heard when I was a kid. It says that the English rejected the crossbow when it was first invented, considering it a form of cheating. After all, it wouldn't be fair to have such an advantage in combat. A handful of skilled archers would now be opposing hundreds of unskilled soldiers equipped with the crossbow. The advantage was volume. Of course, archaeologists have found use of the crossbow in ancient China, which I'm pretty sure came before England, but the idea of the narrative is interesting.
I'm not going to rewatch this whole video. There's just like a lot of like weird little statements in here. Like this guy celebrates like the Soviets getting Sputnik out, but it takes him a long time to mention landing on the moon, which I think he does in like 4 words and then moves on. I think he talks about how I think he says the atomic bombing of Japan was like a terrorist attack. There's just like a lot of like weird little things, but I feel like this makes it into like everything today. Like there's always like all these like weird little anti-American, pro old China, pro Soviet Union propaganda points, and so many like even like videos where you wouldn't really expect these people to be. Like I don't think this guy's like paid by the fucking CCP or the fucking Russia or anything, but. Hello? Play. The fuck is this down here? X.
Voyagers 1 and 2 was to just fly by all these celestial bodies.
Stop.
A grand tour, as it were. His true goal, however, was to reveal the atomic bomb to the world, and opted for what he called a strategic bombing. He wanted to obliterate the morale of the citizens of Japan. In my opinion, this was an act of terrorism. Only 3 weeks later, the little boy bomb would be dropped on Hiroshima, a city largely unaffected by the war. It was detonated above a hospital and a school, instantly vaporizing the patients, doctors, and children below. In the blink of an eye, the entire city was leveled. 3 days later, another atomic bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki. In total, just 2 bombs killed over 250,000 people, most of which were Japanese civilians. That is 20 times more than what 3,000 V2 missiles did. Just 2.
Also, people always bring this up.
Japanese nation, but it would also lead to the total extinction of human civilization. After the war, over 1,000 Nazi scientists and engineers fled to the United States to work on a series of sequels to the V2 missile. The United States Army knew they weren't the only ones who...
The Soviets took more Nazis than we did. Like, people love to bring up this, like, they always call this, like, fucking deep lore in the United States or whatever. Where they're like, Operation Paperclip, Operation Paperclip, But, like, the Soviets did literally the exact fucking same shit. It was a secret, I can't pronounce this, Osavakium was a secret Soviet operation in which more than 2,500 German scientists, engineers, and technicians who worked in several areas from companies and institutions relevant to military and economic policy in the Soviet occupation zone of Germany and Berlin, as well as around 4,000 family members were taken from former Nazi Germany to the Soviet, blah, 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 blah. Like, we're not the only people that did this.
Who wanted this new weapon. And with the power of the atomic bomb atop a ballistic missile of their own, well, they would be unstoppable. So, in return for this new superweapon, the Army gave these Nazi scientists amnesty, despite their horrific war crimes. The Soviet Union would quickly showcase their intense interest in making one of their own ballistic missiles. They would showcase their capabilities by putting the first man-made object into orbit around the planet. For the first time ever, when you looked up at the night sky, something else looked back. It was called Sputnik, a satellite that only emitted a radio signal, but it represented something much more disturbing. It was the first demonstration that mankind could weaponize the vastness of space, unlocking a new depth of despair for the world. The United States continued pumping billions of dollars into the development of their own long-range weapon, and soon, both countries would prove that they could each create an arsenal of...
All of the verbiage for, like, the U.S. is, like, evil and terrible. We got the Nazi scientists, and for the Soviets, it's like, they showed a great interest. I don't know. Yeah, all this shit is annoying to me. Whatever, fuck it, don't care. Can I ask a really retarded question? What exactly was wrong with further crippling post-Nazi Germany, their literal enemies in a world war, to further advance their own tech and create an even larger lead over the world's superpower destiny? Well, the argument goes that if you were involved in, like, atrocious war crimes, there should be some level of accountability there. It can't just be that, that you can commit horrible war crimes, but if you're smart enough, you'll be saved or whatever. Wait, what the fuck? Oh, no. David Pacman's Discord is getting mass brigaded? Wait, are there mentions in, like, Hasan's Discord or somebody of... Heads up, Discord TOS violations seem to be becoming fast and hard. There seems to be either an uptick of scrutiny or an automated enforcement of specific phrases. We've had situations where users receive Discord strikes and even temporary suspensions for messages that quote hate speech or repeat it in an obviously sarcastic/mocking manner. Context does not seem to always factor in to Discord's enforcement. Please proceed accordingly. Well, maybe they shouldn't have been hateful. Just kidding. Damn.
Should Hasan be able to get a restraining order against Destiny? I think the answer to that is no. I think he might be able to, but
No
I don't think
shot.
that he should, and I think it's silly that that would even happen.
There's no way.
And the reason why is
That'd be
that
crazy.
fundamentally, unless there's proof of Destiny actually going out of his way to harass or stalk Hasan, then I feel like as a public figure, when another person is just keeping up with the things that you're saying on your stream and then commenting on them and things that you share with the public willingly, I don't really see how this is at all something that you need to get a restraining order from. Right? He's trying to silence him? Yeah, he's trying. Well, what Hasan is trying to do is that he's trying to avoid things that happened, like the thing that happened on Saturday, where he goes to an event, Destiny goes to the event, Destiny isn't let into the event because he's in the event.
Can I just say how fucking ironic it was that fucking loser at the front was like, well, we're not going to let you guys in because you might cause a scene or you might cause a commotion or blah, 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 whatever. But Hasan decides to show up in a fucking Mao suit and then give a speech that's now like ricocheting all across the fucking internet, that everybody is like seizing on this to look at how fucking insane and unhinged and crazy this organization has become. It's like, and I was the one that was supposed to cause the trouble? Okay, chief.
And he's a more popular person, so he's able to have Destiny removed from the event. It makes Hasan look really bad when that happens. It does. It makes him look very, very bad when that happens. And so if he has a restraining order for it, then he can point to that and say, like, well, this person I have a restraining order against them, they're still harassing me. But fundamentally, I think that, Hasan is part of the, like, it's not like Destiny's going to his house, right? Destiny's not trying to stalk him in any random place, right? Even if Hasan goes to an IRL stream, it's not like Destiny's trying to go and stream snipe Hasan at every IRL stream, right? I mean, Hasan's done like dozens of IRL streams and Destiny hasn't tried to go to a single one of them. So this is specifically and explicitly an event. This is like me saying that I want to get a restraining order against some streamer that I dislike because we're both going to go to BlizzCon or something like that, right? Like, that's insane. Like, this is a public event that concerns both of you. Keep in mind that Hasan is literally trying to get a restraining order to avoid accountability for the exact same thing that he complains to and he criticizes me for. Is that he criticizes me constantly that I won't go out and debate and argue with people and go to these events. I have no interest in doing any of this, by the way. I don't like doing it. That's just, I mean, it's always the way it's been, right? But he tries to attack me that way. But meanwhile, at the same time, not only is he not willing to do that with Destiny, but he's trying to maliciously use the justice system to enforce a safe space so he never gets confronted with any ideals that he disagrees with. That's a problem. Right? It's a double standard. It's maliciously, yeah, exactly. Restraining orders is another thing we known for, according to Shocking as Dog. Yeah, I think so too. And what is this here?
Unserious.
Both people, Destiny and Hasan, are incredibly problematic people to the platform. Destiny has a lot of accusations of people for doing things, and I don't even know if they're true or not, but there's like clips of him talking about, like saying the N-word. Like Destiny has a lot of baggage, is really what my point is, and so does Hasan. Hasan has a huge amount of baggage. Like, both of them are optically problematic. Like, and they are extremely optically problematic. I would even argue, in my opinion, that they are both more optically problematic than I am. Like, with some of the accusations that have been made about the two of them, that's like infinitely worse than anything that I've ever said. It's not even close.
It's such a strange thing for this.
I think that where we're at politically, that might actually be true, I think. Asmongold says a lot of crazy shit, but it's kind of in line with all of the MAGA stuff. It really is. Yeah, I don't know.
This guy to like present himself as this real beacon of prosperity, a real force to be reckoned with within the liberal Democratic Party when the Democrats don't want anything to do.
Well, if it wasn't true, then why are you spending so much time talking about him?
True.
And why are you afraid of debating him? And why do you want to excommunicate him from events that you're going to be at because you're afraid he'll confront you?
True. And even the debate, it's not like he has to debate me. I doubt we're ever going to have a conversation. But like the idea of like he can't even be in the same space as me, give me a break.
Like, I think that really, it kind of like, if he's not a big deal and it's not a problem, then you wouldn't act this way.
And yet, sucks to suck for Bonarelli, Epstein.
He's like working it out in his head. How can I say it in the right way? Like, how can I make this? How can I turn? Okay, Bonelli, Bonarelli, Epstein. Like,
It's so pathetic.
Epstein. But we've made him feel small. We've made him feel stupid.
It's crazy. I'll watch clips about Hasan, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, I'm sure there's a selection bias that's happening here, but like, I never hear him advocating for any sort of thing.
Nope, he doesn't.
Like, I never hear him explaining.
It's always just like revolution or the contradictions of labor, and we're going to rise up and take over. It's like this guy has no policies. It's nothing. But I don't even know if he could speak about policies meaningfully. He's fucking retarded.
Any viewpoint or any sort of cohesive vision for anything or how somebody is wrong. It's just calling people names and then insulting them in like generally like a physical way. Like, I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but like you never see him talk about anything other than the way somebody looks, what people think about them. Like, that's it. That's the entire, unless it's about Israel, being pro-Israel. That's it.
We've made him feel silly only because he positioned himself against people like myself and the environment shifted from under his feet. Okay? Like with Israel. Israel is one of the best examples of this.
That's crazy, isn't it? What are the odds of that?
He has specific prescriptions for Palestine, no? No, what? No.
Phone has been blowing up all day.
Oh,
this phone has been blowing up all day. governors from both parties, senators from both parties, Democrats in the House thanking me for saying what everybody's been saying behind the scenes, which is that this stuff is going too far. I am a progressive Democrat. You want to talk about prison reform? I've done it as well as anybody, Republican Democrats in the South with Trump. I've done prison reform. I never said have no prisons. Where are you going to put the Klan? I've done police reform. I never said no police. Where are you going to put the pedophiles? Who's going to grab the pedophiles? This stuff is going too far. And part of the thing that has to happen is we saw what happened in the Republican Party when things started going in a nutty direction and nobody stood up. I am happy that the young people are fighting for affordability, Medicare for all the good things. I've been waiting my whole life to see a youth movement do what it's doing. But it's being hijacked by people who are putting in nutty ideas supporting terrorists, nutty ideas saying that we don't need cops in prison. We can't deport anybody even if they rape somebody. Who said this? Chevalier. Where did Chevalier?
Chevalier is going to is the Democratic nominee. So sorry, DSA nominee for Congress now from the Bronx.
Yeah.
$50K views equals save, but not safe for work. Amazon Prime $2.5 billion class action. $51 if you qualify. What?
Amazon settled with the FTC for $2.5 billion, okay? $1.5 billion goes to consumers, the other $1 billion goes to the government. If you didn't already get an automatic $51 check sent to you, you still have time to file, but you only have 6 days.
Welcome to Trump to the Bear Gang.
All right? Not everyone qualifies, but it depends on if you had it between 2013 or 2013, 2019, 2013, 2000, whatever it is. You have the opportunity to get your free $51. It's only $51. It takes you 30 fucking seconds, okay? All right?
Damn. YouTuber dies after ingesting poison on stream as viewers desperately try to save him. Jesus Christ. Failed to determine content classification. Well, fuck you. Okay. Which one first?
Aside, using it's important to recognize what international bodies have said. I think that's
okay. The genocide guy. Hold on one sec. Hell yeah.
an odd argument.
Okay. I'm trying to... I've 100% achievement. Oh, I finished the Vampire Crawlers game, okay. There are a few factorial ones I don't have, and one is the don't build anything manually before launching a rocket.
argument to make, considering international bodies have consistently found this genocide, like the UN Commission, like the UN Special Rapporteur, like Amnesty International, and the ICJ preliminary injunction
Yes, I
found that
recall that.
Yeah, the preliminary injunction would find that they would violate the Genocide Convention if they invaded Rafah. Therefore, they've invaded Rafah.
It's if they would have invaded Rafah without taking any precautions, but that's okay. No one actually cares. But this guy does seem to know some things, at least, I guess.
Violated
But I
Genocide
don't
Convention.
think. Wait, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the ICJ has dropped a ruling on it yet. Right?
No, they haven't.
Well, do you know what a preliminary injunction does?
Yeah, it's similar to a TRO. It like enjoins an individual's ability to engage in a particular activity. Well, it's,
Yeah.
I guess.
Damn. Who? This guy's like 20 or 19 years old or whatever, right? True.
A preliminary injunction in this scenario really has no, what's the word? Enforcement mechanism, but yeah, it's still. I mean, it still serves a purpose. I recognize
It's legally binding, right? It's a legally binding injunction against.
I don't know what that even means in this case, but okay.
Against them acting on the basis of the authority of the court. The authority of the court in this case is founded upon the Genocide Convention. Reasonable likelihood that if they violated certain actions, they would have violated the Genocide Convention. So, do you think it's acceptable to host a genocide denier? Like, if someone denied the Holocaust, would that be an acceptable thing to?
Jesus
to host?
Christ.
Well, I don't really know
Destiny's
Destiny's position on Israel to.
By the way, genocide denialism and Holocaust denialism, that's a very clever trick that they play. It's not really the same thing, right? Nobody denies the Holocaust of the Jews in the same way that you would deny the genocide of the Palestinians, right? When you do Holocaust revisionism, what you do is you claim that it either didn't happen or the numbers are dramatically over-exaggerated. Nobody would say like, oh, I don't really think that like, well, some people, no, they usually fudge the numbers regardless. You never really hear Holocaust revisionism like, well, you know, yeah, they did kill 6 million Jews, but I don't think they were like targeting the Jews. I don't think it was like a genocide, but I mean, yeah, they did kill 6 million Jews, I guess. Like nobody really engages in that way. Some people will say, well, there were a lot of bad things that happened and most of the people died of disease, I guess. But almost always there's a huge equivocation on the numbers. It's like, oh, it was like 500,000. It was in the hundreds of thousands, not 6 million or something like that. So it's kind of weird to compare Holocaust revisionism where they try to basically rewrite or say the event didn't happen as opposed to denying the genocide of the Palestinians, which literally only comes down to a label. That's the only thing these people care about because they don't even give a fuck if you agree. Because I think David himself said it. So if we agreed on every single underlying fact, but one we called a genocide and one we didn't, is that like a really bad thing? And the guy's like, yes. It's like, okay, that's just stupid, but okay.
I don't really agree with him. I'm not Destiny.
But you think it's acceptable to platform and co-sign as an organization?
Co-sign as an
What do you mean by
organization.
co-sign?
Oh my God.
I feel like that's kind of.
This strategy is intentional. They all operate like this. Keep in mind that this is like it's not on accident. It's by design. The whole goal is to make it so that, like, if somebody has some kind of disagreement in opinion about some particular issue, you can completely and totally cut them entirely out of the faction and you destroy them in as many ways as possible. Like the idea that, first of all, I don't even think David has the final say on who goes to Unfuck events. I'm pretty sure that would be Z. But the idea that, like, I should be disallowed. This guy's basically trying to make the argument that I should be completely and totally permanently disallowed from all of these types of events. And I was like, really? Because I disagree on whether or not to call something a genocide? Like, that's the guy's argument. It's fucking stupid.
He led the tour?
Yeah, he led about a year ago. He was the primary speaker on the Unfuck America tour in a certain college round, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not? Do you not think that that's platforming the ideas, quality ideas?
What?
Like, I don't even know if we. Well, no, I'm sure it came up in at least one event. But it's not like it was like the main topic of discussion for was it a genocide? No, actually, it did come up a couple times, actually. There were people that would come up to scream about it.
No. Well, it's because it's tough. It's tough to answer the question because I remember when I spoke to Stephen, he was incredibly critical of the state of Israel, and I don't really know his position to a T. Like I've never really seen him debate.
He's never recognized the genocide. I'll tell you. If that has changed, if anyone could provide that, he's never recognized the genocide. He's explicitly denied it. He's debated people who have claimed it. He's consistently lied about things like the Nakba. And he went and visited the IOF on a state-sponsored tour into Gaza or around Gaza.
Oh, nice. So we just fucking lie around Gaza. We just lie. I love lying. It's so OP. But all these lefties do it, and which is why they're the same as fucking Nazis, and you shouldn't trust any of them, and fuck everybody that gives any credibility or credence to any of these fucking loser weirdos.
He was paid by the Israeli government to go to Israel?
No, it was facilitated by the IDF.
No, it wasn't.
Really? I didn't know that.
It must. By definition, is. It's by definition.
Oh, because David, just because he had the audacity to just ask a little bit of a further question, which no journalist in mainstream media is fucking qualified to do on anything. Oh, we can get a little bit deeper into what he means when he says that, right? When he says IDF-sponsored trip, What he means is, well, every single person in Israel technically has a compulsion to join the IDF, and at some point, I'm sure he interacted with somebody in the IDF, and the IDF is technically the military and broad security forces there. So every trip you take to Israel is an IDF-sponsored trip, which is not at all what people think when you say Israeli-sponsored trip, by the way, obviously. But good one, fucking loser.
Definition facilitated by the IDF. That's the only way you get journalistic access to that area.
I don't even know what that means. None of that is true. Unless he means like getting into the country, but it's retarded.
Wait, he went as a journalist? Was he critical? What was the trip like? I recall.
You can be perfectly well critical of genocidal society. I don't care if you're critical of the Nazi government if you don't recognize the genocide, right? Like, we're all critical of Nazis. We still have this slur for Holocaust.
He means into Gaza itself? Sure, but I didn't go into Gaza. You would need IDF approval to get into Gaza because there's a fucking active war zone, but I didn't go into Gaza.
Deniers for a reason, which is that it's important to recognize genocides qua genocides.
Oh, okay. It's important.
Okay, so you agree that it's genocide. I don't know where the dissidence as to why we would ever co-sign a genocide denier is, but you're a liberal. What does that mean to you?
Essentially, I guess, like, generally accepting liberal principles, that being negative rights, anti-majoritarian institutions, democracy, rule of law, and obviously, like, the Enlightenment values, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Cringe.
All those things, yeah.
Oh, Israel's none of that.
Okay,
Talk about
all of those
Israel.
in principle generally good. Are you a capitalist?
Yeah, for the most part.
God, yes, please.
Why would you be a capitalist, right? Capitalism, what draws you to being a capitalist rather than, for example, being on the left and being a socialist or a communist?
I think when it comes to socialism or communism, there's an erosion of civil liberties and negative rights like property rights that I consider to be relatively important when it comes to barring the government from engaging in acts that could harm the citizenry. And it's also a question of efficiency. I think market forces are capable of quickly addressing the needs of people because, I mean, there's no stronger pull to move somebody in a certain direction in terms of production than demand and money flowing in your pocket.
Okay, how do you account for the fact that capitalist nations and capitalism writ large, especially America as a body of capitalism, has engaged in one of the largest underminings of democracy in the world with American intervention? What do you think has led to that economically? And why do you think that has led
well, I don't know.
Israel.
I don't know if there was a economic
Israel?
motive because I don't know. Realist international perspectives like we had during the Cold War era when we engaged in numerous acts of intervention across the globe aren't necessarily beneficial to America's economy. I think
you don't think
war is destabilizing. Yeah.
So why do you think capitalists have consistently lobbied for war?
Like who?
Yeah, I'm curious who the answer to that is. What?
Like almost every single major corporation funding like conservatives and funding warmongers and helping and being complicit in things like the Iraq War, where both sides supported the Iraq War with corporate funding. Things like
this is a bullshit question because every single supporter of war in the United States was capitalist, but every single opponent to war in the United States was capitalist. We're a capitalist country. Everybody's capitalist. What a pointless point. What?
Like the invasion in Vietnam, which had unequivocal support from the corporate bodies within America, and the genocide of the Palestinians. There has been if it was genuinely destabilizing, why is
genociding the Palestinians is like part of Pepsi's MO? Like they need all the Palestinians to be dead. It's such a
corporate lobby against war.
Well, in the case of Gaza, I feel like that's very concentrated. Well, at least not anymore, now that we launched a war on behalf of Israel into Iran. But in the case of Gaza, I feel like it's relatively concentrated. I just don't see what the economic benefit of leveling Gaza would be.
True.
What do you understand?
I consider these things to be ideological.
Oh, can you please push him on that a little bit? What is the benefit? You could argue, I guess, maybe the corporations that want to like control whoever was going to be on that fucking retarded board of peace, if that's even a real thing. Holy Christ.
If I'm being honest with you.
Do you understand why? Have you heard the leftist characterization of imperialism and its relation to capitalism? Or do we need to summarize that?
I'd rather have you summarize it because I don't think the people. Well, I'm gonna hold you to a higher level, considering the fact that you're like an influencer in the space. I don't think anybody that I've spoken to has done a good job at articulating themselves. So maybe you'll do a better job.
Sure. So as like leftists, generally, we view capitalism developing from free market forces into oligarchies and monopolies. Those monopolies then effectuate their economic power into political power. They, because of the falling rate of profit, have an infinite incentive to expand their domain of influence and control. And that leads into state force control, like expanding its access to new markets. That develops historically into classical imperialism and colonialism, right? Like the expansion of formal colonies and imperialized lands. And now into neocolonialism, and that enforced through the neocolonial organizations like the IMF, institutions of ISDS, and American intervention when it is necessary.
Here's the disconnect, and I think the reason why I've had primarily the disagreements with just about everybody on your side of the perspective. Essentially, I believe that that this outlook, essentially chalking up every single foreign policy move to an economic one, is incredibly how can I say this?
Reductive?
Just to be clear, that's not what I do.
It is kinda, right? You chalked up all of the Cold War intervention to the underlying motive being an economic one. You mentioned Iraq, Gaza. What was the other war? Was it Iran?
I properly characterize them as forms of economic imperialism. That doesn't mean that's the only reasoning, subjectively or objectively. There's a dialectical relationship between ideology and material.
I would just assume that if your concern is your pockets and ensuring that your profits are fat and juicy, like any capitalist running a firm, you probably want to destabilize trade routes that are crucial to businesses running across the globe, like the Strait of Hormuz. You probably don't want to be beheading heads of state and bringing about a power vacuum in places like the Middle East that would bring about more bloodshed, that would destroy a lot of these countries as prospects for like economic growth. None of those things really tie into the goal of
but
one
you're
of
assuming
profits.
their prospects of economic growth. If they vote to nationalize their oil or they exert sovereign control over their natural resources, they aren't prospects by corporations for economic. Because
they literally are. You can trade with people. That's a mutually beneficial arrangement. This guy is on the full mark. It's a tendency of the rate of profits to fall, he said, was the reason why imperialism happens or whatever. That's one of those. So earlier in the stream when I complained that like it's crazy to me that people pretend that like Marxist analysis on economics is like a real thing. It's not. Nobody goes to college and you're like learning as an econ major, like, oh, how do you understand the economy? Oh, let's look to Marx. That's just not a thing. It's not a real thing. It's like saying like, oh, like I want to understand. I'm a neuroscience major, and we've got like new theories of neuroimaging. And in order to understand how what neurons or what parts of the brain light up based on what stimuli, we turn to Plato's allegory of the cave in order to understand how the human brain works. Like this is just not a thing. It's just not. It's not a thing at all. There was a Marxist idea a long time ago. Marx had a lot of crazy ideas. One was this concept of the tendency of the rate of profits to fall, I think is how it's formulated, or how you say it, basically. And the idea was that over time, capitalist companies, firms, the rate of profit will always basically normalize to 0%, and that would lead to some sort of, I guess some people use it as an excuse for imperialism or some other like, I think it's like used to justify like increasingly crazy, unhinged things that capitalists could do in a society to try to squeeze out more profit from workers or something. Or, but this has just never been observed that all the profit rate will fall to 0%. It's just never. That just hasn't happened. It was a bad prediction that Marx made. It's never come true empirically. It's never been shown anywhere. It's just like yeah. But as soon as he brought that up, he said that this is like a very like super Marxist guy, like actual Marxist dude.
Sovereign control over their natural resources, they aren't prospects by corporations for economic. Because how do you exploit a country?
We trade with Saudi Arabia, and I believe, if I recall, in multiple countries in the Persian Gulf that have nationalized their oil.
How do you exploit? Definitionally, like you can, well, because he's using exploit. I don't know if he's trying to play both with the normative sense of the word, where exploitation is a bad thing, and then also just like the strict sense of the word of you're using something for an end or whatever. I wish David would ask him. I'm sure he'll get to it. This David guy's smart. Are you saying that you can't have a mutually beneficial economic arrangement where both sides are benefiting from a certain transaction? Like a country that is able to exploit its own natural resources and then sell to other countries is still a beneficial thing for us. We don't have to own the oil or own the natural resources ourselves to benefit from that exchange.
To exploit a country
we trade with Saudi Arabia, and I believe, if I recall, in multiple countries in the Persian Gulf that have nationalized their oil.
Yeah, do you know why Saudi Arabia trades with us on the terms that it does?
Not petrodollar.
Go for it.
Because we help fund its defense. Right, Saudi Arabia is an unpopular monarchy that has had to defend itself from popular revolution multiple times throughout its existence. Right, the thing that has nationalized their oil. Right, the monarchy that is in control.
How do you argue against socialists that say there hasn't been a true socialist country, but we know capitalism is bad argument? There's no way to argue against it. You just say you're retarded. I don't know. Like, how are you going to give a utopia that has never been tried, apparently, but all the big people that say they've tried it and have argued they've tried it, you say that it doesn't really count as trying it. Well, it seems to be that that's not probably a good way to head in that direction if it always leads to catastrophic outcomes. Like, time to do something different,
Is extensively a neocolonial body that is trading with us on highly preferential terms.
You keep referring to Marxism in philosophical terms, but we learned about it in sociology alongside systemic functionalism. There's probably some degree of, I don't know, fuck all about sociology, but there's probably some degree of like, I'm not saying that class is fake or that you can't analyze history through the lens of like class dynamics or class politics or whatever. I'm just saying that in forms of like doing like real hard economic analysis, you're not ever using like Marxist stuff to do that. But from a sociological perspective, there could be value there, but just not like on a hardcore like economic analysis or like a real economic analysis and like nothing. Yeah.
Because of the relationship we have to the monopoly of force over the imperial holdings, that fits perfectly well into the analysis. Yes, Saudi Arabia is a perfect example.
Out of curiosity, can I see where this like conditional trade agreement was formed? Because I haven't read up on that.
I mean, it's not, like if you look up the petrodollar and the establishment of the petrodollar, along with Saudi Arabia, as well as the billions of dollars of defense trading we have done with them, it'll become pretty clear. As well as a good example also is the Jordanian princes who receive extensive defensive support from America with an unpopular monarchy. Bahrain is also a good example. Iran being a bad example, right? Because Iran does not open itself up to foreign intervention from the West or foreign investment from the West, and therefore is not a prospect for extensive economic growth.
So you level it?
Well, what do you do, right? So what do you do as a corporation if no one is allowed? If you're for example ExxonMobil is a good example, or even for Iran, a better example being BP, British Petroleum. Do you know what British Petroleum's former name was?
No.
Marx arguably created the conditions of possibility for a science of the social. I think you need to recalibrate this claim. LOL. Suck my fucking huge throbbing cock. That might be true, what you're saying, in the same way that, like, Freud was the guy who tried to treat psychology seriously for the first time. But if you're coming out with a whole bunch of, like, Freudian analysis, you would say this is just not where the field is. This is not like a nobody is... You're never going to go to a developmental pediatrician? I don't know, whatever the child doctors are. And they're saying, like, oh, I think your child is actually right now he's stuck in the anal retentive stage. And the reason why is because when his mom scolded him, he looked in a direction. And now, like, that's just not where the field is at. Nobody uses that. It's not serious analysis. But Freud gets credit. I'm pretty sure Freud gets credit for being the first guy to do psychology and write shit down and to be like a scientific person in approaching it. So arguably, maybe Marx was one of the first guys to, like, take a formal approach to economics, and then more people started to do it from there. I'm just saying that you wouldn't learn it in any modern incarnation. Nobody is like, I need to figure out how to optimize trade between these two countries. Well, let's consult our labor theory of value and our Marxist ideas about profits in order to understand what's going on between these two countries.
It was the Anglo-Iranian oil company because, if memory serves,
I agree with that. I was just saying that claiming Marx is useless for an analysis of modern econ is a bit exaggerated. It's not. It is useless. Nope. You're not going to read an econ paper on immigration or the effects of minimum wage or whatever, and they're like, wow, if we consult the whatever. Like, it's just...
I might be wrong on that specific point, but I'm pretty sure.
Or at least I've never seen that in a paper before. Maybe there is some... Maybe... I don't know. I just haven't seen it. Okay, there. I hedged.
Someone check me. Because Iran, during its first popular revolution, which later ended up in Mossadegh taking control, nationalized or attempted to nationalize its oil over what was previously an extraordinarily bad oil deal for the Iranians that was extractive for what is now BP, right? And BP was complicit with the British Empire and, at certain points, the American Empire in undermining Mossadegh and, yes, destabilizing them for what became a dictatorship passed by the Americas where they continued to trade oil with America. And this set the foundation for the Iranian Revolution in 1979. So yes, absolutely. If you have to level it to get their resources, they're happy to do. That's what we did.
Well, it's just like, okay,
in Libya. That's what we did in Iraq.
It's just it's just so pointless. When we have such sophisticated forms of trade across the country with countries that are willing to trade with us, I don't really see the benefit of just again going to war and destabilizing the global economy with the purpose of what, securing Iran's resources.
Wait, how do you think we got to that? How do we think we got to that case where people are willing to? For example,
it's just so boring. Like, this is why I hate the class politics or any, like, reductive framing. I guess feminists used to do this, or everybody does this, where they have their one pet way of viewing the world and they try to squeeze every single problem through that. Like, the Iranian war right now is partially because the U.S. leader is a fucking moron, and it's because Israel sees a big opportunity to, like, permanently shore up its security state. It's to say that this is like some economic war. I mean, maybe Trump wants it to be because he's fucking retarded, but it's not really. Like, I don't think anybody in the U.S. economy, any capitalists, were pushing for the fucking oil markets to be fucked indefinitely.
Nicaragua. Why do you think Nicaragua is so willing to trade with America?
Well, that's not really wait, do you think that we are engaging in what, coercion to make Iran trade with us?
I think we are engaging with coercion, at least historically.
If communism is good, why are its strongest adherents retarded losers like Haas and Hasan and Jackson Hinkle? True.
And implicitly with the majority of smaller countries that we are trading with. That's why I point to Nicaragua. Nicaragua once had a popular revolution, the Sandinistas, right, where they explicitly cut off foreign intervention and trade with America because it was extractive and abusive, right? They were a banana republic previously, and then America undermined, explicitly traded with.
Also, everybody for the Cold War stuff, everybody only talks about one side. Like, it was literally the United States just running around doing regime changes and evil, terrible things. And just us, and there definitely wasn't an opposite side to that was starting multiple conflicts in countries across the world, but just the United States, I guess, like, okay.
It's really addressing an organization called the Contras to undermine them.
You're pointing to exactly you're pointing to history, but I'm asking you a specific question.
God forbid.
Yeah, that's pretty bad faith.
But that's how we do politics.
I don't think
politics is history.
No. Historically, when was the last time we had a president like Trump?
historically, I mean, it depends what you mean like. I think all of them have been war criminals and imperialists.
That's not, you know exactly what I mean.
Boom.
I think all the intelligence or everything that's been leaked from individuals close to the situation point to...
The socialists and Marxist types, again, because they're so far outside the liberal paradigm, they do group most of these presidents together, from Obama to Trump to Reagan to anybody else.
Donald Trump's fixation on opulence as being the driving factor to go on a war on Israel, go engage in war.
What is opulence but capitalism realized? Oh, I'm coming.
Or on Israel's behalf, not like an economic benefit. If anything, the economic disaster that has been the war in Iran is leading Donald Trump in pursuit of an off-ramp. That's why we're looking so hard to get a ceasefire deal.
But it's been a K-shaped recovery, so actually the rich get richer.
Because gas is now at $4 a gallon, and we saw a 59% increase since the start of the year. I think it's clear, well, at least in this case, that these oligarchs are really driving or pushing the fucking needle, and it's rather just an incompetent administration looking to behead adversaries across the seas.
I think we can have an interesting economic analysis of the Iran war. Let me take you back 10 minutes in this conversation. We were not specifically talking about the Iran war. We were talking about imperialism writ large. That's why I talked about history. I will agree with you 10%, which is that fascists act irrationally, right? Trump, as an open-out fascist, is not directly imposing the will of...
oh, my God. And now we have the all roads lead to Rome. So when Trump acts like a fascist, he's acting rationally in his capacity as being a fascist. But when Trump does things that are literally entirely contradictory to the idea that I'm laying out, well, that's just because at times he acts irrationally, which actually perfectly maps onto what I'm claiming because I said he's a fascist. So there are going to be times when he acts irrationally, and there are going to be times when he acts rationally. And when you can give me an example that contradicts anything I'm saying, well, those are just the irrational times that actually further proves my point that he is a fascist because he's irrational at times.
One-to-one of the oligarchs, but it is very clear that fascism writ large, historically and now, is in the benefit of the oligarchs. It benefits the oligarchs because oligarchs benefit from crisis. So, for example, there's a good book on this by Naomi Klein, Crisis Capitalism. Is it by Naomi Klein? Is that I was thinking of Shock Doctrine. Yeah, Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein outlines this very clearly. Destabilization is actually incredibly beneficial to oligarchs because they are able then, if we, for example, destroy the Iranian regime, let's imagine we were successful in doing so. They would be able to make up for the vacuum of power by entering with billions of dollars in foreign investment, which would be extracted in beneficial oil fields. This is precisely what we did in Iraq, right? The Iraq war was very popular with the oligarchs, very, very popular with the corporate backers, and very popular with the corporate nonprofits like Heritage Foundation and many of the liberal nonprofits, right? Because what we ended up doing is setting up a proxy state in Iraq and extracting millions of dollars worth of natural resources from Iraq to date, right? That's absolutely what we did.
Okay, so... Well, just again, I'm looking at how firms and consumers are operating within the current economy. You have consumer sentiment at record lows. If you go by the Michigan stats, since they started recording it, they've never seen consumers so doubtful and fearful of the American economy. You have consumption going down. You have overall growth on a quarterly basis going down below the averages of the prior administration. I'm just curious to see where the economic benefit is being reflected as of this moment.
The theory,
in the case of the Iran war, I can't really. The reason why I'm
what about the theory,
really harping on that point in particular is because I'm not really too in tune with the historical significance in terms of the economic benefits that firms have seen from, for example, like the war in Iraq or Vietnam. Definitely
can I intervene for a second? Because I think I get the spirit of what you're saying, which is I'm not saying that Trump is the best imperialist. I'm saying you as a liberal are promoting the system, imperialism and capitalism, that has incentivized the vast majority of imperialism across America's history and has led to the deaths of billions of people, or billions in total, but millions directly, of people. Right. So that's why I'm talking about history here. I think the discussion of how fascism fits into imperialism and capitalism, I think, is complicated and typically one that is done between leftists because you recognize the framework and then there's a complexity to the framework on how fascists are a tool of capitalists. What I'm critiquing is liberalism. And the Iraq war was done under liberals, right? The illegal invasion of Afghanistan was maintained under liberals. The Vietnam War was done under liberals, right?
Who was the other side
Israel
of that,
was
Afghanistan?
maintained by
liberals,
liberals,
he's talking about the recent one.
So I'm,
what about the other
I'm
one?
asking you how your system isn't at fault for that, or if it is, how you aim to correct that.
Well, I'm curious, like if
By the way, did you know that liberal capitalism didn't stop all wars, therefore it's responsible for all wars?
It's done under liberals or whatever. Does it really speak to
Obama was a liberal, right?
the system, or does it speak to, I guess, the individuals in power at the time? Like, I don't really know if you could necessarily discredit something based on whether or not the government is bad faith. For example, Donald Trump, again, is in office of this moment, but just about every single core principle is antithetical to liberal principles, but at the end of the day, he runs a liberal country. So is what he's doing now, like bombing 10 countries in the span of the year, which is the most than any president in American history, or going on ground invasions of, Venezuela and then a war in Iran, or like encroaching on individual civil liberties at home. I just don't see how, first of all, destroying America, destroying the American Constitution, targeting citizens, killing people in the streets, going to war overseas is economically beneficial and going to grow the pockets of fucking oligarchs. When the country's on the brink of collapse,
exactly
in
what
world
want to do.
would a billionaire want to be living in this current system?
Once again, you're reiterating that fascists bring capitalism to the brink of crisis.
They bring any country to a brink of crisis. I don't know why that would be exclusive to capitalism.
Wait, who are they? I mean, fascists have taken over following the recesses of imperialism.
Can there not be fascist individuals in a communist society?
Fascism is a political ideology,
yes,
but more importantly, a form of politic, right? It is a political, let's say, the political system, right? Yeah. So when we think of fascists, we think of Vichy France, we think of Nazi Germany, we think of Mussolini Italy, we think.
I feel like fascism is very loosey-goosey when it comes to, like, what is a fascist government? I don't think that denotes anything at all. You could probably do it through some form of like faux parliament. You could do it through some form of Emperor Japan shit. I don't even know how much power that guy actually had at the end of the day over the military. To say that fascism denotes a particular political system, I'm almost positive is completely not true. But I've never heard that before. I don't know.
Yes. But more importantly, a form of politic, right? It is a political. Let's say the political system, right? Yeah. So when we think of fascists, we think of Vichy France, we think of Nazi Germany, we think of Mussolini Italy, we think of Spain, we think of Portugal under Salazar and Spain under Franco. All of those were serving the oligarchs. So Spain under Franco massively massively benefited the oligarchs by cracking down on communists who wanted to redistribute the profits of the oligarchs to the working people. They cracked down on union organizing, right, which helped decrease the wage for the workers and increase the profits for the oligarchs.
Fascism doesn't have a definite definition, the same way democracy doesn't have a definite definition. I feel like democracy implies some form of people voting for something, either representatives or referendum policies or whatever. Like, I think you kind of have to have that. For fascism, I feel like it denotes more conceptual things. I guess you could argue voting is a conceptual thing, but
it helped militarize the society. So if you're talking historically about fascists, that's what's.
Why is it not brought up the difference in life expectancy between East and West Germany? It's a great example. No, they all will argue one of two things: either that the stats and the ideas of how horrible East Germany are horribly misrepresented, or they'll say that the only reason why it was so bad in East Germany was because they were trying to choke it and starve it from West Germany in the capitalist world or whatever. There's always some excuse. They never believe any of that shit. They always have an out for it.
You're also just not answering my question, which is how are you as a liberal? I'm trying to. The question that was asked was how are you as a liberal not complicit for the imperialism that was promoted by.
I don't support these things, and I think again, destabilizing the globe.
I think it's a natural consequence of.
It's not. No, that's the thing. A lot of
these. It's like, oh god. Honestly, I think David is doing a better job of this than I would. These are hard conversations to have live. I also haven't had them in a long time. But like, he's arguing something that is just so broad. Like, I'm sorry, we're gonna say that liberal capitalism is responsible for what? Imperialism, for invasions? Like, this shit happened in unironically, probably not prehistoric times, but like 10,000 years ago. I'm pretty sure that like, as soon as farming was discovered, there were fights over land and territory and armies and taxes and everything else. Like the idea that like what form of government, what section of human history was there no imperialism or no war? This is just like the natural state of human conflict. Now, I mean, obviously at times in history we've had more and at other times like now we've had less. But to say that, well, maybe not now, but to say that like this is the fault of liberal capitalism, it always leads to war and starvation and hunger and all these horrible, terrible things. Like, I mean, I think hasn't this always happened through all of human history?
Things are the Iran war is okay.
The Iraq.
Oh, okay, Iraq war. I'm pretty sure you said Iran, but
I said Iran. But that's
okay. Why can't again? Like I'm just curious. Like I don't know why is it.
But I'd like you to answer. You've been curious 3 times. I'd like you to answer my question. So
I was about to answer. You just cut me off. I don't think you're. Listen. Slow down. Like I don't think you're intelligent enough, or you have the foresight to be able to predict the things I'm about to say before I say them. So if you can be more respectful, that'd be nice. He said you wanted to have a good, fit conversation, but you've been incredibly condescending this entire time.
Mean.
So. I don't know why it's a contradiction for me to say I don't support imperialism that destabilizes global economies or trade routes. I think that actually is very much in line with my principles, that being a growing economy, collaboration overseas, and globalization. So for me to be opposed to these things, I think is totally fine and in line, again, with what I believe in. I don't really see there being a contradiction. I think if things are not realized in practice every single time, it's not really necessarily going to be a jab on the system. Just like historically, we didn't always have equal distribution of negative rights in this country. It doesn't mean negative rights shouldn't exist, or it's a criticism of our constitution or whatever.
It's extra fucked because nearly every one of those wars, while not entirely justified, were usually response to communists trying to commit unironic genocides and fail. Communists, when they'll talk about these things, will try to say that there was some popular movement that like the CIA or somebody was trying to overthrow. But yeah, the reality is that generally the Soviets were backing their own guys on the other side. And the idea that there was like, I'm not confident enough in my global history to say this definitively, But in every situation where I've ever looked up, like in Afghanistan and a lot of South American places, where like the CIA was trying to coup somebody, there was a Soviet guy on the other side that the Soviets were supporting. It's not like, I've said this before, I've never in all of history seen an example where you have like a super popular regime that is loved by all and the people. This includes in Iran. This includes Nicaragua. It includes even in Cuba. You don't have these like super popular regimes that are where everybody loves the main guy, and then the CIA comes in and they tip the scale and they assassinate the leader, and now their guy is in charge. Like usually there's a whole bunch of unrest and turmoil, and there's already like a lot of factions fighting, and then the CIA will come in and they'll try to support their guy, or the Soviets will come in and they'll try to support their popular regime. I guess they have an advantage because they call all of their people popular, so it makes it seem like everybody loves and supports them, but.
However, I think it's rather a critique on government at the time, again, not the framework.
Sure, and yeah, the principles you said I don't disagree with. The point is not that any bad thing that happens under any liberal is attributed to liberalism, right? What I was describing to you was that this was a natural consequence of the concentration of economic power that happens under capitalism, right? And the incentivization structure under capitalism to do imperialism, right? Like it is demonstrable that the enforcement of, for example, banana republics across Middle and South America was massively beneficial to the American capitalist class, right? And to the natural hierarchy that developed from American capitalism, right? You as a capitalist, I don't see how you can.
But like. Supporting Soviet revolutions there was beneficial to the Soviet, but it wasn't necessarily an economic thing. I mean, it will be an economic thing because a country has an economy, but it was more the two competing ideologies of the time. No, like
in good faith say, okay, we should have the system that results in oligarchs, and these oligarchs do end up pressuring our government to engage in actions that are profitable to them, and then we condemn the actions that are naturally consequential of my system. Where do we draw there?
Well, again, I just don't see how an oligarch would want to destroy the Persian Gulf and go to Iran.
Use the examples I set out.
Why would I? I'm not really too
because that's the argument. Also, it's hard to do these history arguments if you don't know the history super well, and I don't know the history super well. I mean, I could learn it for a debate, but it's to compare, this is one thing I know to be true, to compare pre-91 U.S. foreign policy to post-91 foreign policy, anytime somebody's doing that, it's kind of like when people talk about, well, let's look at how the economy's doing, and like, let's take a look at the stats. Well, from the year 2020 to 2023, look at this crazy trend. Or like from the year 2019 to 2022, look at this crazy trend. It's like, well, hold on. What was going on? What was going on there? These are probably exceptional numbers, right? I don't think we could really rely on these to be telling us anything insightful about what was going on, right? We had COVID. These were exceptional times. And the same is done when people want to trash U.S. foreign policy for understandable reasons. I'm not saying the U.S. is perfect. But every time they're like, well, what about the Sandinistas? What about in the Cold War? What about the Cold War? What about in 45 and 65? Blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, it was a Cold War, bro. Like, yeah, the whole world was fighting itself.
And I made, yeah. Because
it's an argument as well, and you're not engaging with it either. I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, because it's not the context of the point.
It is what I was saying. The point. It's actually directly tied to it. I'm curious. Like, are you saying that imperialism is exclusive to capitalist societies?
Imperialism in the structure in which I'm making imperialism in a leftist definition, yes. Imperialism.
I hate this defining of things. That one guy that I spoke with, the weird pro-pally dude, he did this thing where they have like the way that they define imperialism or the way that they define exploitation or whatever. It's a way that it's literally definitionally, it can only be a capitalist thing, but they want to summon all the normative value of like what it normally means to be imperialist or what it normally means to exploit something so like it feels really bad, but then they define it in like a hyper rigid way where for some reason it can only apply to capitalists. It's just boring, stupid.
Imperialism is but
what is imperialism in a leftist definition and
the expansion.
What are the different definitions?
Well, there's a liberal definition, which, in my opinion, amounts to generally just any country invading another country, which fine, countries invade each other. The point I'm making specifically is that there is a tendency of capitalism, right, to concentrate economic and political power in a set of oligarchs, right? And then it is in the incentive structure of those oligarchs, due to the falling rate of profit, to seek out further markets for exploitation. That leads to economic imperialism, like we saw across the Middle East, yes, in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, in Palestine, and more poignantly to America. I'm trying to make this simpler, right? Because once again, I've recognized fascism is a divergence from capitalist, open, active, direct, short-term interests. In some cases, but the banana republics is very clear here, right? Do you know the situation of the banana republics?
I wanted to mention, I wanted to mention quickly. I think it's important to recognize. I disagree with the principle that the rate of profit is going to fall to zero. I think that hinges on everything.
The claim isn't that it's going to fall to zero.
No, but that is like the rate of profit to fall is going to force him to. No, okay, then explain it to me. I must be unaware of what it really means.
It consistently falling doesn't necessarily mean it gets to zero. Marxism does not.
the word games. It has to fall to below whatever an acceptable number is to the capitalist, which is why they engage in increasingly unhinged behaviors. But I believe in a perfectly competitive market, Marx theorized that the rate of profit would necessarily have to fall to zero. I think that was the whole point of the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. That's why you have to find more things to exploit, more resources, more people, more countries, whatever. But I don't know. Maybe there's a more particular way of defining it that he'll say.
Does not believe that it will reach zero, right?
Because
it'll go through cycles.
right, but it's trending to zero, right?
It'll trend downwards.
Okay. And I'm just like curious, why is that the case? Why is that something that is going to happen in a capitalist society?
Because wait, have you read Capital? It's like the thesis of Capital.
I asked you a question.
The smug laugh at reading the most pointless book. If you have actually read all 3 parts of fucking Marx's Das Kapital, if you've read all 3 parts of this and you've never studied any formal economics, what an entirely huge waste of your life. I cannot imagine many things in life that would be a bigger waste of time than pretending to have to glean some insight into how economies work by reading the 1,000 fucking pages of ugh.
Okay, so it's a consequence of the analysis that is explicated across Das Kapital by Karl Marx, right? Okay. Simplified and shortened. It is because the organic synthetic ratio in capital will consistently lower, such that organic capital within any given piece of what is this?
You're gonna have to dumb it down. I'm gonna need you to communicate in common parlance because I don't know what the synthetic or organic capital is.
Exactly. U.S. what? In common parlance, read Capital. But in simple definitions.
Does he not understand it? If he can't define it in plain words, it sounds like he's just memorized definitions, which would be really stupid for this. And in that case, now he wasted even more time reading the book because he didn't understand it.
Yeah, exactly. U.S. what? In common parlance, read Capital. But in simple definitions, as we get more technology, I don't know actually how to explain this as simply as possible. First of all, it's a historical trend that we see, right? The rate of profit does fall, writ large, barring.
That's not true. That's completely not true. If I had to guess for Marx, I only read, I don't even know if I made it to 100 pages. Fuck that book. The way that a capitalist makes money is it's like the combination of natural resources plus labor plus capital or whatever is how you, and then some bullshit or whatever is your labor theory of value. Are synthetics capital and organics are natural resources, maybe, is my guess?
Imperialism. That's why we see ever expanding firms.
That's it?
Yes.
I think
no.
Historically, we've seen profits fall.
No.
Really?
We've seen profits understood as profits. Yes, fall.
No.
As in the social.
No, that's just not true.
Sorry. What am I thinking of?
It's one of the worst predictions that Marx made. It's just not true.
The social wage has fallen, right? And profits writ large have fallen. Yes. Oligarchs have amassed more wealth and more capital. That is true. And that has allowed them to expand across more markets further. But I'm intrigued. Do you not think, I've answered yours.
Okay.
Do you not think, first of all, I just want to know, it's odd to be speaking about American politics and not know the history.
Okay, so this guy is a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. He sounded smart, but he has a good mind for memorizing things, memorizing facts, I guess. That's insane that you could read if he truly did read all of Capital, and then the other 3 books that these guys always fucking cite, and I don't know if they actually read them, Shock Doctrine, Manufactured Consent. Sometimes I hear Capital in the 21st Century or whatever by, I think, Piketty. I don't know if he's far enough left for these guys or whatever. But if you can't summarize or explain the tendency of the rate of profits to fall in common parlance, in layman's terms, how could you spend so much time reading and studying this and not being able to do that? That's kind of insane to me.
I've answered yours. Do you not think, first of all, I just want to know, it's odd to be speaking about American politics and not know the history of American imperialism across the middle.
Why would you? I don't know. That's wild.
The Central American, South America. But so as to that example, though, do you not think that American imperialists have attempted to open more markets within Central and South America? Do you not think that's true by history?
I'm not disregarding that to be the case. I just question the efficacy as to that being a good enough alternative to just allowing countries to develop as they are. I think we primarily benefit from a relationship with more developed countries than we do with ones that aren't. And just dominating peripheral countries that engage in unethical business practices, first of all, we can't really truly benefit from them because it's illegal to import their goods. And on top of that, I think people dying overseas and us having to have global health initiatives to give them vaccines and formula and shit probably isn't the preferred situation. It'd be Africa that is fully developed, which Africa, there's a lot of countries in Africa that are developed, but to those that aren't, to those that are getting exploited, to those that are in disarray, or to countries in Central and South America going through similar situations, in no world is that a better situation than that country being fully developed and having a group of incredibly elite human capital that can come to our country to benefit us, trade and specialties that they engage in that could benefit us. All of these things would be more beneficial to a capitalist society than countries in fucking ruin and countries at war.
It's pretty true.
Okay. how do you contend with the historical fact that oligarchs have consistently funded and lobbied the government to destabilize and attack those countries, right? Like almost every single Banana Republic oligarch, right? So like things like Chiquita Banana have lobbied the government.
I feel like it's not really addressing what I said.
Is that because it's not true in the context of what was said?
Yeah, well, in
true
a historical
that for the
context, these things may
oligarchs-
not be true, but I'd argue that there's probably more at play. But sadly, I cannot speak to it with the utmost detail. If you want, like, we can cut this short. I will do research on it, and we can get back to it. Or we can just continue the conversation as is. I want you to list.
I mean, I'm happy to go through. I'm happy to explain it, like as you can understand, as you can point out.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
what-
let me explain all of the facts I'm bringing up that you're not aware of, and certainly that'll let you debate me. Like, obviously, if you explain them in the way that you understand them, then the only way to possibly continue would be to agree with all of your arguments, right? Because it's not like you're going to have an understanding of these things where you explain them in a way that makes your argument wrong, right? Like, what?
I rather get my own findings, if I'm being honest with you. But first of all,
okay.
But so
what
at the
you
end of the
said
conversation, I want you to
was-
list out the conflicts. But yeah.
Somebody said organic profit is the inherent value of a product, and synthetic value is the increase due to market forces. I would have to go back and look because I don't remember this shit. But how did Marx ever account? Oh fuck, bro, I hate all that shit. I was gonna ask, did Marx ever account for supply and demand impacting values or impacting prices of stuff? But I think the labor theory of value is just a transformation thing that doesn't actually deal with price. It deals with value, and value doesn't necessarily map onto price, is how Marx explains it, right? So the labor theory of value is just helps you transform these things from one thing to another, but it doesn't give you an ultimate determinant at the end of like what somebody will buy or sell something for, I think. Like when people say like, oh, like the speed of light, you know, it's E equals MC squared or whatever. Well, no, it's just this is a transformation showing you the relational concept between matter and energy or whatever. But it doesn't it doesn't actually tell you what the speed of light is. I think.
Yeah. So what you said was that it is not overarchingly good that they do this imperialism. Sure,
It's not.
I agree.
In no world. No. I mean, in an economic sense, not just in a moral one. In no world would you rather.
It's not. I would agree. It's in an economic sense. It's also not good.
Yeah.
For
So
everyone,
for
but it is good for the oligarchs.
in what world? in what world would
Because
a
I thought
Taiwan
so.
invaded, or a Iran destroyed, or a Ukraine invaded, or South America?
Like the biggest counter to this, I would say, I mean, there are always going to be people that have capital interests, much the same way that they're going to be racist. But you wouldn't say that all of our foreign policy is racist because some racists will jump at certain opportunities. Like, why did we go to Iraq? What was the inciting event? It was the 9/11 shit. Now, regardless of whether or not going to Iraq was good or bad, obviously, I still don't even know from a U.S. foreign policy perspective what the fucking justification could possibly be that relates to 9/11. But like 9/11 was clearly the inciting thing that drove the fervor in this country that eventually got us into Iraq and Afghanistan. That wasn't an economic thing, though, right?
American and Central American countries destroyed. How would that be beneficial to a ever expanding market that wants more goods and services?
Because it allows further monopolization of that capital by the capitalists who are able to engage in imperialism against it. So you are viewing, like that's what I've explained, you are viewing this purely within the context of overextensive force by fascists. That's why I'm trying to bring it back to the context of like well-regulated force within liberals, right? Which is still not well-regulated. It's still direct imperialism. So this is why I point to examples, right? If we look at the imperialism of Hawaii, right? That was specifically lobbied to America by the Dole Fruit Company, specifically to increase the scale of market and production by the Dole Corporation to take fruits from Hawaii. They undermined a sovereign country there, right? The Queendom of Hawaii, right? And that clearly benefited American oligarchs. Are you telling me, like, I would love it, like, if you don't know this is fine, right? But just from what I've said, do you not think, if you know anything about the story, like Dole, right, the company, do you not
If your
think that was
characterization
massively
is correct,
profitable
by
for
all
Dole?
means, that is terrible, yeah. And it is contradictory to what I believe in. I think something that's very important and integral to liberalism is the idea of sovereignty and being able to govern over your borders. Which is why, again, I'm so against invading Venezuela or invading Iran or striking 10 different countries in the span of a year. So
My point is that that's contradictory with the natural outcome of your belief.
it's
Right?
not,
I agree.
right? I think even you'd agreed that in a theoretical sense, all of these things are probably not beneficial to maximizing outcomes in a capitalist society.
How do you define capitalism? It doesn't seem like socialists ever presented a definition of what it is. In my mind, capitalism is just the idea that a individual can own capital, that a capital owner can be somebody who is not necessarily involved in the labor related to the capital. So like if I own a restaurant, right, I'm a capitalist. I'm able to hire people to go and work at my capital and then generate profit by selling goods or service or whatever. But that's like that's essentially what capitalism is. Obviously, ideologically, it denotes some form of liberal government. It usually denotes some form of like open economy, and I don't know, like you can run it down, I guess, in different ways. But like in the broadest of levels, I guess that's what I would say capitalism is. Yeah.
So if my desired outcome is
what do you mean in a capitalist society?
As in a country where the mode of production is one in which private citizens are allowed to engage in the specialization of any particular good or service, of any particular good or service with little to no government intervention. These things, like again, a destabilized globe, are not beneficial to that goal. Because again, it messes with trade routes. It forces a lot of countries to I guess readopt the realist international relations perspective and start looking out for themselves and treating the international stage like a zero sum game, which is what we were doing, which resulted in a lot of harm across the globe. Those things aren't beneficial to these systems or these ideas.
Once again, like this is a basic contention that leftists have, right? Which is there's these set of ideas that capitalists subjectively hold about their system, right? And then there's the natural outcome of capitalism, qua capitalism, right? And this is why I think history is so important.
I agree. Yeah, like when we were engaging in intervention throughout the Cold War, don't you think there was more at play than just capitalism? I feel like it was.
There's always more at play than just the economics.
Yes, it's probably not a good idea just reduce it down to that.
But the Cold War isn't the only context of American imperialism, and also capitalism did have a lot to play in the Cold War.
No, it was expansion of our biggest adversary's sphere of influence in places like the Middle East, Africa, places in Europe, or South America, Central America. I think,
but he can reduce it by. There's got to be a name for this. It's like a data overfitting thing or something, where like I'm trying to make the argument that. Let's say that you want to measure something or talk about something related to humans, and my argument is going to be this is because of body hair. And you're like, okay, well, I think that some humans I think that they gravitate more towards violence or whatever in some capacity when they watch certain TV shows or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but notice that all the people that are violent have some form of body hair, right? And like, no matter what argument you make, I'm always going to say, yes, this supports like the body hair hypothesis. Like this thing where he's going to keep saying like, well, didn't capitalists have interest in this preventing the expansion of the Soviet Union? Didn't capitalists have it? Well, yeah, but like every single person in the country had that interest essentially, more or less. Like we all benefit from our country winning over the Soviets. So it's like, so I don't even know if you would call it reductive or if you would say it's like an overly fit, too broad of a variable or something like or you're overfitting or whatever. It's a meaningless statement. It's a meaninglessly reductive statement. Yeah.
That is just, again, it being born from a realist international perspective, one that America, at least I thought, didn't carry up until the Trump administration got back in office.
But they were pretty open. It was explicitly about the expansion of quote free market capitalism into those areas, right?
Yeah, but do you believe Trump is an idiot? Like this did not benefit us. It's not benefiting us capital wise. Like
that's imperialism in the name of capitalism.
But is it a move to preserve your country or preserve its influence or fight an adversary, or is it just because you want to keep your oligarchs rich or whatever?
So from my view, which is that America is like the primary mode of political power within America is oligarchy, right? I don't see a massive distinction between those two. I think you can cognizantly talk about, once again, a dialectical relationship between ideology of prior material conditions, right, and the material conditions at hand. So I think you're right that there is more than just the immediate interests of immediate oligarchs within the Cold War. But once again, you're pushing this solely to the context of the Cold War, which American imperialism is not solely to.
Yeah.
But we still hold colonial assets like Hawaii. Right, we still have coercive relationships like we do in Central America, and we still have coercive relationships like we established through the Cold War, but even prior to that, across the Middle East, Israel being one of them. Right, that is still clearly a neo-colonial relationship we hold with them. So I've explained. Like,
why do all tankies talk this way? If you have your own mode of analysis, it really helps you steamroll basically every possible argument that somebody could throw at you, because you're using like words in ways that most people don't understand them, and then you're engaging in a form of analysis that an ordinary person has never even like engaged with in any level. So it just lets you always have the upper hand in these conversations because somebody knows what the fuck you're talking about.
The reason I point to previous examples of colonialism is because they're the most clear, right? Hawaii is a very clear example of the oligarchs clearly being interested in colonizing this area. Do you have an accounting for that? Like, how does your system not produce that? If it naturally produces oligarchs who are naturally interested in expanding markets, right, and naturally profit off of the use of state force to expand those markets, I can bring it to the modern day now with things like ISDS, where we, threaten countries or countries that we do invade, like the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, we force them to join ISDS forms, which is investor-state dispute resolution.
I can't really speak to I'm writing them down every single time you mention it, so I can do research after stream. But again,
all of these like World Economic Forum things, or not, I'm sorry, not World Economic, these WTO mechanisms or whatever, like ISDS, like investor state dispute mechanisms and stuff. Like, I mean, like, it gets complicated, but basically one of the huge issues you run into as a international person is if I invest in a company in another country, I don't ever really want to go to court in that country if I feel like I'm being wronged, because well, fuck me. As an American citizen, and let's assume that I have a company in Brazil and I feel like the Brazilian government is treating me unfairly. Am I going to go to their fucking courts as a foreigner and I'm going to try to win? Like, I don't trust fuck that. I'm never doing that, right? So in order to engage in trade with a lot of these countries, you have these dispute mechanisms set up. So it's like, okay, well, let's appeal to like some neutral third party that we can both agree on, or supposedly neutral third party that we can both agree on. This guy would say they're not neutral. They're all imperialist backed or whatever. But it gives people more confidence when it comes to investing in or doing business with other countries, because you don't want to fight on their territory all the time, because the country could just fuck you over and locals could expropriate all your shit, and you're just shit out of luck if that country's court system decides to, not give you a fair hearing on anything.
I mean, if the oligarchs are as powerful, I would love to see where the fuck they're at, because America's
Well, they're funding all the...
Yeah, well, America's standing on the world stage has drastically declined. Only 11% of people in Europe consider America an ally at this point. A lot of countries that were initially considered to be strong allies of America are looking to trade with different nations, like China, open up to their trade. I think Saudi Arabia was literally, what we mentioned them earlier, is an example of this. Canada is an example of this. Europe is an example of this. I just, again, if these oligarchs care about economic expansion, destroying America standing on the world stage, engaging in conflicts that destabilize the global economy, I feel like...
Doesn't the international court more often than not side with Western goals? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, because Western countries probably can afford to be more stable, so they'll generally have the mechanism in place. But my understanding, I have to go back and check, but I thought that the International Court for the WTO stuff, I thought they tended to side with whoever brought the case. So it shows that, like, if you're willing to pursue a case, generally speaking, you'll win. You just have to have the patience for it or whatever. But I would have to go back and check. It's been a long time since I've read up on any of that.
Like, probably clash with these ideas. Right.
It's actually it's really interesting. Like, what I would say, like, to answer your question about how fascism plays into this analysis, fascism, from my view, is the politics of a dying empire, right? So I think you are right that the move that they are doing is the death of the American empire. I thank God it's dying, mashallah. I'm pleased with that.
That's fucking insane.
Fucking loser.
Why?
Because millions of people are going to die as a result of this.
Or who do you want? What empire? Who do you want to replace it, bruh? Ugh, it's fucking loser. Oh my God.
Probably not something I'd celebrate personally.
No, millions of people died because of the expansion of the
That's
American
not really,
empire.
that's kind of ignoring everything I just said. So USAID was responsible for saving, I believe it's almost, I think it's 90 million people since its inception.
Capitalism put
after
those
the year
people in harm's
2000,
way anyway.
Tens of millions of people. One program alone, PEPFAR, saved, I believe, 25 million fucking people. That's gone now.
These guys don't care.
That's gone. And now millions of people, and I think
this guy's going to say USAID was just a CIA fucking foreign op anyway.
50,000 healthcare workers across all these countries are now going to see every single one of their patients fucking die because of the incompetence of the Trump administration. And then we go to Venezuela and we bomb the Caracas capital district. I mean, I personally don't like seeing that. We kill innocent people in Iran. I personally don't like seeing that. I don't really know if I'd want to celebrate the destruction of all these things. It's a pretty bad
No,
thing.
the destruction of the American empire. The American empire is the one that bombed Venezuela and destabilized the country.
Yeah, but that same American empire is the one that had USA that saved tens of millions of people, right?
The American empire also largely is the reason that USAID had any reason to exist. USAID was
literally the United States government is what dropped AIDS into fucking Africa. Yeah, this is always going to be these arguments. Yeah.
So to be clear, I'm not against. But it is contextually important to it. So the fact that a lot of these countries were dependent on American aid is largely due to American and Western intervention, right? I think we all live in a world.
There's this weird feeling when it comes to exploitation and colonization of other places, which is especially funny because the fucking British and all you guys were colonizing way fucking more than the U.S. did. But they would consider any kind of like economic foreign investment as a form of like the International Monetary Fund consider these things like imperialist invasions through more clever mechanisms or through capitalist mechanisms or whatever. What was I just saying? What did he just say?
Countries were dependent.
Oh, in these guys' minds, it's always the case that like the entire world is on the precipice of like everybody's going to come together and form like this happy world where there's global peace, but it's like just because the United States is there or just because Destiny's from on YouTube, like it prevents world peace from breaking out. But if the U.S. would just get the fuck out of the way or capitals just get the fuck out of the way, we would have like world peace everywhere. It's so cringe.
On American aid is largely due to American and Western intervention, right? I think we all live in a world where it'd be preferential that they do not require U.S. aid. But once again, I'm going to address, it is important. America, as a country that has stolen billions of dollars out of the pockets of these countries, should pay reparations.
I agree,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. And this is a teeny form of reparations. But the death of the American empire does not mean that those reparations shouldn't be paid. It means, hopefully, that we do not create more situations in which it is necessary, right? So that's what I'm saying, mashallah, to the death of. But to the... Yeah, obviously, right? Like the millions of people that were murdered in Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Syria by the American empire. Thank God their oppressor is slowly losing power. Right?
Yes.
The millions of people that were murdered by American interventions across South America and Central America. Thank God their oppressor is ending. The hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that have been subject to a genocide funded by America. Thank God that oppressor is losing power. That's what I'm talking about. And I hope you would celebrate that as well.
Hold on, I'm responding to a text. Can you repeat the question?
Would you also celebrate like the lessening power of America insofar as it lessens the power of the oppressor of the Iraqis, the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Yemenis, the Syrians?
I don't think that the collapse of America is something to celebrate. It can be a very apocalyptic thing considering the scale of influence that they have in this country. If America descends further and further into fascism and our economy collapses, the entire fucking globe is in for one hell of a time. It's going to fucking suck. So I do not want Israel to continue dominating the people in the Gaza Strip or expanding settlements in the West Bank or into Lebanon. I don't like those things, of course. I don't want abusive governments. I don't agree with them. That's why I currently don't like the American government. I just don't know why we're asking these questions. I feel like it's a given, right? You know my position on these things.
I think I'd celebrate the lessening power of the oppression of the Iraqis. I think that's really important.
Okay.
I'd be pleased with that. Just like I celebrated the end of the British Empire, right? It caused some harms, right, later, but we all look back in history and go, yeah, thank God that ended. Ended the German Empire. That was a fantastic thing as well. I think it would be really odd to not be pro the end of the German Empire, pro the end of the British Empire,
Well,
even though at the time people
all Western examples, by the way. Nothing about the Ottoman Empire. Nothing about. Well, no, he would celebrate the end of the Russian Empire because the Soviets came.
Saying the exact same thing.
Here's following the I don't know. I think it's important to recognize that if Donald Trump manages to do what he wants to do, which is inevitably just suspend the contest in America for how we elect representatives, don't want to say the big word because then TikTok's going to label me for misinformation. We're fucked. Like everything is fucked. And I feel like that's severely downplayed. Like we're going to experience
within the United States. Totally agree. And the places.
Wait, you don't think the global economy hinges on the United States existing?
I don't. I think that might have been a lot more true about 15 years ago, as you were pointing to, right? The oligarchs are shifting their capital towards the East, writ large, towards investment in China and shifts in Saudi Arabia and Korea, etc. I don't think that's as true since the 2008 financial crisis. No, not nearly as true. It's still a little true. It's still
it's very true. It's incredibly true. We're the largest consumer base, in the globe, the largest economic player. That's $30 trillion of gross domestic product gone.
What's that as a percentage?
In terms of, I think it was. I read this a long time ago. 15.
What?
What's that as a percentage?
Economic player. That's $30 trillion of gross domestic product gone.
What's that as a percentage?
In terms of, I think it was, I read this a long time ago. 15 or 18.
Yeah. Once again, that's a significant amount. I don't doubt that it's significant.
I was about to say.
But it doesn't hinge on us, right? Like it is an absolute and total catastrophe if we change, if we fundamentally. I think there are shifts,
if
right?
But Donald Trump suspends elections, we're fucked. The globe is fucked.
I think our existence has been a catastrophe for the global South, right? The Iraq War was a catastrophe for the global South. Our invasion of Libya.
Why do we want more damage? Because we fucking hate America.
No, the choices of the continuity.
Sorry, 25%. That's fucking huge.
Oh, 25. That's pretty significant. That's more than I would expect. The choices that we have is the continuity of that destructive and vitriolic empire, right? The expansion of that destructive and vitriolic empire, which I think the politics of liberalism is, right? Let's not have.
I've come in contact with this a lot, and I just don't really see it. Like I didn't see Joe Biden. I know. Israel, that was a big thing. I didn't see Joe Biden wanting to wage war across the globe and destroy all these countries and shit. I don't see liberals now. I don't see any liberals in Congress or those that are running on a ticket that is like, we must be interventionists. I think it's clear that political movements in America has drastically changed to abandon this idea that we should be going to war. Historically, the American people know that if you do engage in conflict and you do engage in intervention, you do engage in any semblance of regime change, those things typically don't go well. And that's why you see members of Congress looking to stop funding the UAE so they could stop funding the RSF committing their fucking war crimes in Sudan. That's why you see liberals in Congress wanting to take away fucking bulldozers so Israel can't just expand settlements into the West Bank. That's why you see Democrats in general changing their position on these things, specifically military intervention, because the liberal movement isn't really for these things as it currently stands. It could have been like that before. There was a lot more fucking war hawks and shit. I don't disregard that as being the case, and I don't really agree with those people either, nor was I alive to ever speak out against their abuse. But I don't see these principles reflected in, I guess, the current Democrat zeitgeist.
Sure. I might try to reframe, because I agree with the ethos of what you're saying, which is that
why can't we just work to change how we do things? Why does our country have to be literally obliterated? When you're dealing with people of a certain level of privilege or spoiledness, right? Like this guy's impression of the planet and of the world and of all the evils is, I don't know where this guy's from. He sounds like he's never left the United States in his life, okay? Or he's in Canada or some bullshit. The idea is that like every single people on the planet is like a peaceful, happy, healthy people, but it's just capitalism or the United States that comes in and ruins everything. And that's because the ideology of the United States is rotten to its core. So the reason why you can't reform it or do anything to change it or make it better is because it can't be made better. It's ideologically, axiomatically poisoned. So everything that is produced by a liberal government or by a capitalist system is always going to lead to where we're at now. It's inseparable. For like the outcome and the starting place are inseparable to people like this.
Liberals have become less fervently pro-intervention, right? If we go back to Obama or even Joe Biden as a vice president, he was clearly pro-intervention of, Libya famously, Yemen famously. We agree. What you're describing is a general shift in liberalism. And what I would say is that it's a shift in strategy of how to maintain empire, right? We're not seeing any of them call for the destruction of NATO, right? We're not seeing for any of them to call in the shifting of votes for the IMF, right? We're not seeing anyone call for shifting the fundamental, like ISDS structures, investor state dispute resolution structures. We're not seeing for anyone calling for reparations for the Iraqis, right? So I would agree that they are slowing down on the expansion, the expansive violence of empire, right? But I think that if I would contextualize that within a liberal framework, right, liberals go through cycles of how to maintain empire. And at times, it is tactical to slow down violence of empire, right? Every empire recognized this, that there's a give and take. That was the foundation of America. I'd agree, but they're not calling for the undoing or deconstruction of that empire. They're just saying that expanding it right now is costing us too much, which is the observation you're making. It's costing us too much for the oligarchs who rely on the Strait of Hormuz to trade, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's an intra-oligarch argument. That's not an argument for the global working class, and that's certainly not an argument for liberation.
I'm just, I don't know if you want to go down there. I'm just curious. What is NATO? How is that something that should be deconstructed, a defense pact? I feel like that's probably something you'd want, right?
I think, no, NATO is complicit in crimes in Yugoslavia. NATO is complicit in crimes in Iraq, right? NATO has been used as an enforcer, right? And a legal structure to justify enforcement of American imperialism. There's only been one time
NATO's
that
not
Article
enough.
5.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that. Well, when you say NATO is operating, or you mean that the NATO coalition actively mobilized? Is it the organization or
when was NATO's only been mobilized?
Yes.
Once.
Yes.
And that was for American imperialism, the Iraq War.
Okay. Do you think that? But is that it? Like that's just the one thing, and for that
No, but this is what NATO was founded as. I mean, if we want to go into the history,
the Yugoslavia stuff wasn't that a NATO coalition? Okay, I think Libya might have been as well. Yeah.
Defense pact. I'm just curious to see because you're kind of painting the picture.
He's mixing it up with when was Article 5 triggered, I think, or whatever. Which Article 5 was only, I think, triggered related to Iraq, or the only time it's been triggered was the Iraq War, which is true. But there've been other NATO missions.
Realists.
No, I feel like it served as a pretty good deterrent against global instability. Served a pretty,
it enabled instability.
Really?
A coalition of the willing built out of the NATO coalition, built through former structures of NATO, bombed Libya. Do you think the bombing of Libya was good for the global coalition?
Because countries within NATO bombed Libya.
No, they did it as NATO. They did it under the title of NATO. They didn't.
Wasn't it a UN coalition?
For Libya, I don't think so.
It wasn't a UN coalition, but the UN essentially gave their blessing for it, right? And I think China even abstained from saying no as like a Security Council thing. Like that might have been a Security Council resolution, I think, which is a really hard thing to get. Or I'm sorry, for the Article 5 trigger, more specifically, it was for the Afghanistan war. We pair the Iraq war with it in our brains, but it was for Afghanistan, technically, not Iraq.
It might have been affirmed by Libya. So was the Iraq War, or by the UN. So was the Iraq War. The Iraq War was also under a Security Council resolution, incorrectly, but that's the claim.
Wait, this could just be a misread.
Yeah, I believe it was a
well,
NATO
the UN
operation.
did it with their resolution.
I believe there were NATO troops on NATO
authorizing the
troops.
international community to take all necessary measures to protect civilians from Gaddafi. And then NATO took sole command of the offensive air and sea campaign.
He's not going to believe any of the Gaddafi stuff, by the way. If Gaddafi comes up, he's going to say that Gaddafi wasn't doing anything bad. There was no genocides. He definitely wasn't accusing his political opponents of hiding LSD and Pepsi cans to brainwash his masses. I mean, like things he unironically did this. Gaddafi was a fucking lunatic.
A NATO-led coalition? Is that because it was like... Hold on.
Yeah, it was NATO. I believe it was a coalition of the willing within NATO, but it was NATO-led and through the NATO command structure.
Okay.
Yeah. So what NATO is it's a coalition of imperialists that have used their coalition to enforce their will across the global south. That's what they did in Libya. That's what they did in Iraq.
Okay. Well,
that's what they did in Yugoslavia.
I think, again, intervention probably isn't the best practice. I think Obama's approach in Libya probably also, I guess, just serves as another example of that. They very hands-off. Resulted in obviously the power vacuum, and then its descent into further instability. I'm just, like, I don't really know how that's an argument when the general...
just made it.
No, hold on. When the general, like, international consensus was that Gaddafi was an abusive leader, they needed some way to put him in check.
Genocidal.
If a NATO-led coalition participated... well, I just don't really see how that's a shot against the org necessarily.
Well, the fact that we obviously all look back on Libya and see it was an utter failure and helped enable
it was a failure. I agree. It was a failure. But
it was a failure for its stated aim. I think it was a success for its actual aim, which is to help to
How would we
challenge
benefit from fucking slave trade?
How do we benefit from a non-sovereign Libya? Millions of dollars in natural resources have been stolen from Libya following the fall of Gaddafi, and billions.
Millions? Did he say millions of dollars of resources? Bruh.
if you look at the effect that Gaddafi had on Pan-Arab and Pan-African states, right? America explicitly named this in its undermining of, at some point, the British and French Empire, and then Pan-Arab and Pan-African countries across there, Nasser, Gaddafi, and then in the Congo, what was his name? I'm forgetting the guy in the Congo as well. Shouldn't it be? He's important. Lumumba, right? They were explicitly named challenger because they offered alternative sovereignty for occupied nations like Libya, like Congo, which we have also stolen millions from, right? The anti-communist push that you point to as ideological is also clearly economically incentivized.
It's not, right? Like if you had I think Gaddafi was engaging in abuse. I mean, UN found that to be the case, and that's why they launched that offensive to try and put him in check. You can't benefit from slave trade if you're a firm operating within America. It's explicitly illegal to import goods produced by unethical business practices. That's law dating all the way back to the 1920s. So
yeah, it's a law that's not enforced, quite obviously.
Wait, wait.
Got him.
We seize over $1 billion worth of goods every single year. Hold on.
Are you claiming this, for example, cobalt coming out of Congo, right, has net totaled something like hundreds of millions of dollars for firms like Apple and firms like Microsoft, right? Do you not think they've benefited from the trade with the Congo in that case?
Hold on.
I think it's pretty clear we've benefited from the billions of dollars we've stolen.
Well, it's because here's the thing. The problem is, what you need to call for is general, like global, a coalition to address this issue instead of primarily targeting America. There's only so much you can do from a legal perspective because these things do seep into global trade routes, which is how supply chains, which is how they inevitably fall into the hands of companies like Apple or other ones that depend on it. Like I want to address this 100%. Like I'm against those things, but yeah.
This isn't a discussion of how to purify our capitalist trade routes.
No, it's a discussion of like painting America out as a country that wants to enslave people so they could use their unethical business practices to get cheap labor overseas for like vital goods.
It's primarily their natural resources, I'd say. Primarily the natural resources, like in Congo, where we've stolen millions of dollars of cobalt from them, right? Like in Sudan, where the UAE is trading still with America, as you point to, and have stolen millions of dollars worth of gold from Sudan through the RSF, right? We can draw.
And there's no Democrat in office that is looking to not pass policy to stop us from supplying the UAE with arms. Like, I just don't think that's the general position to be benefiting off of slave trade. That's not my position. Again, I don't think that's contradictory to what I believe.
Wait, but it has nothing to do with it. I'm not talking.
Of course it does. Like, you're saying that. No, it does, because you're saying that everything I believe in is essentially contradictory. Because in practice, we're going to continue pushing for slave trade. We're going to continue destabilizing countries overseas. In no world is that reflected in the policy prescriptions or desired policy of people in my party or I.
It's what your party's done.
Okay, wait. I'm curious. Do you think John Ossoff is the same as the Democrats in office during the war in Iraq or during the war in Vietnam? Or are these people drastically different in terms of their
desired policy? Do you think John Ossoff is a fan of Obama?
John Ossoff would not launch a war in Iraq.
But wait, answer the question as asked. Do you think he's a fan of Obama?
That's a bad faith question.
No, well, okay,
everybody's a fan of Obama. Nobody's looking
at that war criminal.
No, this guy, he hates Obama.
Not everybody is going to be as well read in the Iraq war as you are.
Yeah.
But you you notice how you just continue to cut me off because you know that I'm getting to a point that is relatively significant in the conversation. That being that no individual that's currently in the Liberal Party is represented by the actions of former Democrats dating back to like fucking all these pieces of shit that launched wars overseas or engaged in intervention during the Cold War era. Again, these things are not represented in the current Democratic Party. It's not antithetical to the Democratic Party to be against these things.
Do you think Obama's a piece of shit?
I think Obama was not the best president. No, I think he was pretty bad.
Jesus.
Would you condemn him as a war criminal?
Oh my God. I don't know if David, he probably knows this because I think he spends time in these spaces. But like, yeah, to this guy, Obama is functionally going to be about the same as Bush or Reagan or any of the worst U.S. or Trump or whatever. Like they're all the same. When you're illiberal, all the liberals look the same, even the most far right ones and the most far left ones.
Yeah, I think the legal conflicts in Libya.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure he had AMF for Iraq, almost 100%. But yeah, I think he did a lot of bad shit, especially in terms of immigration.
Yeah.
Disagree with him.
And here's a rhetorical question you can answer if you want. Could you find me
That doesn't really address what I just said. You asked me a question in response to my point.
Is that obviously they do represent a continuity?
No, I mean, if you're not assaulting Obama and calling him a fucking war criminal whenever you see him, because not how American politics works.
No one suggested we assault.
Okay, yeah, sorry. If John Ossoff, oh yeah, it's base, yeah, put him in the Hague. True. That's just like ridiculous, right? In no world. Now, let me explain it to you. In no world, in a society that is considered to be operating at a very high standard, where politicians are not expected to be violent, and calling for former presidents to be thrown in the fucking Hague, like Obama, who didn't go out and insurrect. I'm not done talking, right? Obama didn't try and insurrect the Capitol or try and call for us beating the shit out of half of the American electorate. Obama domestically didn't engage in practices that were so crazy to where his image has forever been tainted. Obama, in the eyes of the citizenry, is not a war criminal. So if you're John Ossoff, if you're any Democrat, it's not going to be the most tactical thing in the world to be like, fuck you, Obama, you're a piece of shit, when he still has a lot of pull in the party because of the political capital that he garnered throughout his term.
So the political party is still, at least in part, beholden to war criminals like Barack Obama.
No, right bro. I'm curious. If John Ossoff is not saying throw Obama in the fucking Hague, does that mean that John Ossoff is identical to Obama?
Yes.
No one claimed that.
I agree, right? So
He would say morally, he would say morally it's the equivalent.
It's just like a pedantic observation, that being that John Ossoff is not cussing Obama out whenever he sees him, right? I don't agree with Obama. I think his immigration policy is fucking terrible, incredibly inhumane. I don't like mass deportations, very, very bad. I'm Mexican. That's just me being a radical Mexican immigrant, okay? But I don't see how you can expect this conduct from a party that is held to a high standard, is expected to be civilized, that is expected to have decorum. That's just really an argument against the point that I'm making, that being that the Democratic Party is not the same as it was under Obama. It's not calling for wars in Iraq. It's calling for the opposite. It's calling for an end to the war in Iran. It's advocating openly in Congress by introducing policy and voting on policy to stop funding the UAE, to stop funding the RSF, to stop funding Israel. This is not sign of a party. And I guess we'll only really find out when they get back into power, that is looking to expand America's sphere of influence by dominating peripheral countries in our hemisphere and obviously in the Middle East and Africa.
Sure. So my point with Obama was not that they were the exact same. That's like an obvious kind of silly straw man to say they're the exact same. No one
Is
said
dogpiling in Obama how they plan to defeat Republicans? I can't take it. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. These guys don't care at all about Republicans. Their goal is to eat the Democratic Party. They don't even think about Republicans. You're not, dude. Where's the gif with the disappearing black friend or whatever? That's going to be Hasan and all these lefties in the general election. Do you think this guy's going to be campaigning for any of the fucking Democrats? The DSA people's seats are all safe and won. They'll probably just be shitting on the Democratic Party the whole time throughout all the midterms and criticizing all the APAC Dems.
that no one's
done. Yeah, you agree with what I said. That's a concession.
It's not because I didn't say the opposite. It's not a concession because it's not an argument I made. I'm conceding to the straw man you made of me. But, like, that's it. I can't concede on a point I didn't make. The reason I bring up Obama is because the fact that they won't divorce themselves from it. Also, I don't expect them to. To be clear, no one's surprised about the actions of liberals in power or even on the road in a campaign. Absolutely no one is. I certainly am not. And I agree. It would be a bad move within liberal politics to condemn the work of
Correct, because he's going to say because liberalism is rotten to his core and it will always produce these types of like imperialistic, exploitative empires.
Oh yeah, it's not going to.
Sure, because most people are American exceptionalists, American supremacists.
Most
and
people.
Don't see
No. I think my point is rather the American electorate.
Can I finish my point?
Highly knowledgeable.
I would agree. Most of them have actively been lied to about the war crimes that he has committed. So either American supremacists by ignorance or by active belief. And I don't think even when they are told, they view the murders that he committed in Yemen as equally culpable. Like frankly, like you, who thinks it's silly, right, to even suggest that we send Obama to The Hague, right? I don't think that's silly. I think actually we have sent, as America, we've helped enable people to be sent to The Hague, right? We've helped enable NATO operations which have sent people to The Hague, right? That is for people that committed very similar crimes to Obama, right? Even if we go see what's happening in the ICC right now, very similar crimes being indicted for, and helped enforced by the American-backed troops in NATO. So I don't think that's silly, and I think it's American supremacists to suggest that it's silly. Now, to say that liberals not doing it, yeah, I would agree, because liberals are complicit in the empire, and it is not.
That's just not really addressing my point. My point being that no. My point being that there has been a substantive change in policy prescription, one that is directly contradictory to this idea that you're trying to peddle. That is that liberals are looking to expand America's sphere of influence, engage in acts of imperialism that result in bloodshed, etc. Again, like Joe Biden ended the drone program. Joe Biden didn't.
I think I already addressed this.
No, you didn't. Joe Biden did not launch a boots on ground war. Again, so if the Democratic Party, as it stands now, is against all of these things, and so am I, there is no contradiction as to me being a liberal Democrat, because the party stands there. The party looks back on our history as one being that's incredibly damaging, one being that's incredibly violent. And if I continue to hold that position, again, it's not contradictory. It's learning
David,
from the country's
I think I already addressed this, but I'll reiterate it simply.
David,
I've already agreed with you.
David,
then we're done.
Democrats. Wait.
You can't agree with that and then continue to argue. It's like over.
I've already agreed with you, and then I continue a sentence, right? Yeah. Which is that I've already agreed with you that as of right now, the strategy for maintaining empire is not to continuously escalate violence in expansion of that empire, right? So what you're observing, as I've already articulated, is that they do not expand, right, violence against it. But my point has already been made, which is that they support the superstructures and the invisible social violence, right, that is effectuated to maintain that. And that is why I pointed, right, we're in a circle, right? I pointed to none of them calling to end NATO, right? None of them calling for the change in the voting structure for the IMF. And if we want to get really mega woke, as we should be, right, none of them calling for the end of the colonization of Hawaii or Puerto Rico, right? Or the occupied lands in California or the occupied lands in Alaska, right? They are still trying to maintain both neo-colonial structures, right, through the IMF, through NATO, through American intervention and American superstructures. Like none of them are calling for the end of military occupations in Korea or in Taiwan or across Africa with our hundreds of military bases. They are all in support of that imperial violence, right? And so until they start condensing the American empire and not just arguing with fascists about how to effectively maintain it or expand it, that's a very different ideology, don't you think?
Well, yeah, if your characterization holds to be true, but obviously I disagree with a lot of things you said. NATO is a defense pact. The international community has changed its rules, I guess, ostensibly over the last couple of decades, where a lot of the actions that you're listing out are unacceptable, and again, that's reflected by the party as a whole. I don't see these things in the current policy prescription, and now you're saying you're trying to ascribe malicious intent, saying that the party's.
I don't care about malicious intent.
That's not really relevant to what I'm talking about. You're
It is.
ascribing.
You said I was
No,
trying to
you're
draw
ascribing.
malicious intent.
You're ascribing an evasive, malicious intent to try and paint this picture of them being
No
not
malicious intent.
I'm not done talking. Not being. It is malicious intent. Lying to the American people
Lie.
about your
That's
true.
a lie. That's
Oh, wait. Okay. No. Wait. Like, you're wrong. If the Democratic Party is lying to the American people about what they really stand for, that being continuing to expand America through imperialism and violence, that is malicious intent. They are actively lying to the electorate to try and sell them this picture that they do want to expand social safety nets, that they don't want to engage in acts of conflict. That is malicious intent. Is it not malicious?
No, I think a lot of I can explain.
This guy's not arguing that the individual political actors are malicious. He's arguing that the entire system of liberalism is malicious. So while Obama or some individual political actor might not be malicious in when he said we need to expand our economy, what he really means is we need to enslave the entire global south and exploit them. They're not actually being malicious. They're just practicing liberalism and capitalism, which is why we need to destroy the system of liberalism and capitalism, because it'll always necessitate this type of exploitation.
I think a lot of Democrats subjectively don't view imperial actions as imperial. Like you, I don't think they view maintaining American military bases on illegally occupied land as imperial. I do, right? They don't have to have malicious intent to be wrong. They don't have to have malicious intent to maintain empire tactically, functionally. They don't have to have malicious intent to be wrong about their own ideology. I think they misunderstand what the effect of their ideology is. And as I said, and I'll ask a direct question, which Democrats are calling for the end of the hundreds of military bases that we held across the world?
Well, first of all, I don't really know if this is going to be a topic of conversation in Congress every single moment, as there are other issues that are actively going on in the country to address. But you can go try and interview one of these people to find out their position on the matter. I don't personally support the idea of having military installations in countries that are not explicitly okay with it. If there's agreement by the government, then that's fine.
I think that's still a maintenance of empire, but regardless.
Why? What's the issue? If they want an American, if the country itself, if the government's okay with a military installation, what's the issue? What's the invasion of sovereignty?
Well, if they want the military, first of all, no free people would ever want the U.S. military there. And if they do want it, then their want of it is probably just a product that's been manufactured consent. Sorry.
Like so there's a series of points here. It's not the mere existence of a military base, right? But it's the economic, social, and political context of it. So Nicaragua is a great example of this. We have military installations across Central America, right? So for example, there was a popular uprising. I'll go back to examples if we want.
No, you can just give me an
uprising.
example of a country where the government is not okay with these things, and us continue to have a military installation there.
Palestine.
Okay, we have a.
What an example. What are the U.S. bases? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. Where are the U.S. bases that we have in Palestine again?
Military installation in Palestine.
It's called Israel.
Good one.
Israel's a country.
No, it's not.
It is a country.
One.
It's not a valid country at the very least. It's
Okay,
like
well, you can say that. That's okay. I don't like Israel either, but at the end of the day, it is a country.
Yes, this is kind of my point. There can be governments, right?
No,
and
it is internationally recognized as a country. Like that is how sovereignty is granted. It's by international recognition.
Why do I care?
He doesn't care about that.
So like there really isn't an example.
He did care earlier though when it came to the ICJ and everything else for genocide, but for country recognition,
military base in existence that is against the wishes of the government.
Wait, why do I care what do you care what governments say, or do you care what people say?
I care about reality, and the reality is that Israel is recognized as a state.
Wait, do you think sovereignty is held by the people or the government?
Sovereignty is primarily legitimized via recognition of the international community.
International law grants a right to a people.
Where sovereignty comes from is up to you. It can come from fucking atoms and primordial ooze. It can come from God. Your rights can come from wherever the fuck. But governments exist to defend those sovereign rights. Without a government to defend the rights, I guess you can have them, but in practice they won't exist because nobody's there to protect them. So you recognize the governments. You don't recognize, like I'm recognizing your inalienable right to, whatever you feel like you have, but good luck, I'm dropping you off in the middle of the ocean. Have fun practicing those rights.
That's not really addressing what I just said. The international community legitimizes sovereignty. That's why Israel has been a respected state, and that's another reason why Gaza, for example, Palestine is not recognized as a country.
Most of the world does not recognize Israel, just to be clear. Most of the world's population, most of the world's states don't. But second of all, international law recognizes a right to a people to a state. That's Namibia case in the ICJ.
Is that true? Don't recognize that Israel exists as a country? Is that true? Or does he mean doesn't recognize? I mean, I know most of them don't recognize like the occupied territories in Gaza and the West Bank as being, that's all in dispute. I think a majority of the world's countries believe that that's in dispute.
I don't disagree. I think Israel is doing bad things.
Oh yeah, true. Israel's a member UN state. I don't know what he means by that.
But it's not a military installation. It's a country.
I mean, it can call itself whatever it wants, and other people can call it whatever it wants. The accurate material contradiction within Israel is that, and Israel's a good example because the people on that land, the Palestinians who have a right to rule that land, right, are in opposition to that military installation. Even if you think it's also a country, you recognize there's military installations in Israel that are unpopular with Palestinian people, right? I care about the sovereignty of the natives. I don't really care about the sovereignty of the Israeli settlers.
Natives? What? Okay, but only going back to a certain time period that you get to decide when we go back to, right?
Do you?
Okay.
Why do you think it's acceptable if we bring enough settlers to a certain place? Then they vote magically. It legitimizes.
Well, America didn't bring the settlers there. That's born from that's dating all the way back to the fucking British Mandate following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. But that's like not really the topic of the conversation. I'm mainly discussing that's just not a military installation, and you really have no evidence of there being one against the wishes of the government.
As I said, I don't care about the government, and it is against the wishes of the relevant government. It's against the wishes of the Palestinians, right, and their representation. I don't care about the government. You're right. I don't care about.
No, you're just trying to continue the center the conversation on Israel-Gaza to try and pay me out as a fucking Zionist. But it's just like it's not.
You are Zionist. You recognize Israel as a country.
Well, it's like okay. I'm curious. Do you think that the best move forward is to dismantle Israel as a country?
Yes.
Okay. If there is a dismantling of a country of individuals that is filled with a population that has very high tensions within a group of people, what is...
Careful, David. Remember, this guy literally just said he's cheering for the collapse of the United States of America. This guy doesn't give a fuck if all the Jews are genocided.
Likely to happen there?
It depends the context in which it was
probably like internal conflict, destabilization. That's probably not what you want, right?
Conflict.
I agree, and it'll further exacerbate the issue. True.
Wait, you're making a pragmatic.
I don't want Israel to exist as a Jewish state. I want it to exist as a state with equal rights, where every single person is granted equal recognition by the state, by its constitution, and are granted equal ability to participate.
Then what does it mean to be called Israel?
What do you mean? What does it mean to be called Israel?
Why is it not Palestine? Why would you not dismantle the Israeli state and just install a Palestinian state?
Because again, that would bring about like destabilization.
So this is the issue.
Here's a problem. No. It's not an issue. It directly ties back into what I just said. You have to do what's pragmatic. I think obviously Israel was established in not the best way. They took a lot of advantage. They're incredibly subversive. They engaged in a lot of crazy shit, dating all the way back to following the you know the fucking history. I don't need to explain it to you.
Yes, I do.
But it's just a question of if there is a state that is Israel and there's Israelis in it. If the international community were to say this is Palestine, I think a government that is known to historically be violent, oppressive, very erratic, is probably going to just resort to its primal tendencies. So if you don't want bloodshed, if you care about Palestinian people, you have to. This is fucking impossible. You have to find an impartial actor, an individual that's willing to mediate these things, and hopefully build up. Obviously, grant Palestine its recognition, give them land, but you need to find a way to build up. I guess a strong enough relation to where there won't be heightened tensions. It's fucking impossible though. That shit's fried.
So might I suggest that historically, right, the only process we have to build this off, I would think of 2 or 3 maybe primary examples, right? The denazification process that happened following Nazi Germany, right, where we did explicitly go in and destroy, right, the Nazi state apparatus. Right.
Was that not like an imperialist project, though? Denazification came off the end of the conquering of Germany as an empire. It came after, like, foreign liberal governments intervened and conquered them. Like,
fired all of the state.
Destiny, is it a war crime to shoot a retreating troop? No. Why are you spamming this question? No.
We destroyed the Nazi state apparatus, right? We criminalized Nazis, and we held trials for certain of them. I don't think they went far enough, to be clear. I don't think anyone who knows the history of that thinks they went far enough, right? But that was a fundamental destruction of the state. Another example is the end of Rhodesia. There was the Bush War, and then the natives won, right? The natives won with Rhodesia with help from the international community and international condemnations and sanctions. America broke that. That's a different story, right? Very similar to Israel. That also resolved with the destruction of the Rhodesian state apparatus and the construction of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, you might have a good argument how Mugabe happened, right? But I don't think any of us think that it should be called Rhodesia still, and I don't think any of us think that Rhodesia should have maintained as Rhodesia. So I think all of history would tell you that the only way you effectively denazify a country, which is what you're referencing, right,
is war.
With a war.
No, I think we're already at war. There already is.
We're not at war with Israel.
But no, Palestinians are at war.
You mean that
Israel.
the United States should launch an offensive, or the international community should launch an offensive in Israel?
Yep.
How are they going to get Israel to? Well, I think that we should engage in coercive diplomacy, and maybe that would try and get them to the table. But
that would be more than enough, by the way. So if Israel stopped having,
I don't know.
But I have no issue if America suddenly became not Israel, right? Like America and Israel are materially the same body, right? America is Israel's an extension materially of America, right?
Zionist occupied government, baby, hell yeah, Zog,
you know, an extension of the American empire. Then yeah, sure, we could imagine this time where America could invade Israel. No, I think effectively, right? The actual solution is America stops it. We as actors, right? Our call is for America to stop its support of the Israeli state, right? And that involves.
Are you gonna watch the Wick stream tonight? I'm on the Wick stream tonight, baby.
Using every lever we have, including a threat of coercive force. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think we're going to win against.
I just mean
in
coercive
America.
diplomacy. That meaning like economic pressure, which is how we brought.
Yeah, I
it
mean
to the
bombs.
table to
I
bring
think we
up
should
the
threaten
DPI.
to bomb them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should.
We know. We got it.
Yeah, I mean, if we have any justification for it, it's the international obligation to prevent genocide. I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
We
for
certainly
sure.
would be justified internationally. As I've said, America's an oligarchy that doesn't represent us. I don't think it'd be relevant.
It's just, again, like if we see historically that a violent state is being violent, and we don't like that, history has shown us time and time again that simply bombing them isn't really going to solve the problem.
Oh,
You
if
know?
they're Jews, it will.
Yeah, but also leaving them alone isn't also coercive.
I don't think we should
diplomacy doesn't work
leave
that well.
them alone.
I think
Coercive diplomacy
occupation
is
works pretty
shown
well.
historically
I think
that
American
it has been
occupation worked
successful.
in Germany. I think American occupation was pretty effective in Germany. I think we enable occupation of it by, I don't know, another country, right? That's pretty effective.
This
Or
guy's
maybe we
freaking epic,
fund
dude.
Palestinians to occupy it, the native people to occupy it, right? That would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty
Wait,
fun.
but
When
don't
we
you
funded-
wait?
when we funded
Don't you think
Lesotho
that
to undermine South Africa?
Well, I think that's just like egging on a group of fucking people with essentially no resources to go kill themselves. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't
Why
think
would
that
we give
first
them
of all,
F-15s?
there isn't
That
a
wouldn't kill them.
there is not a coherent Palestinian Authority, right?
Well, there's the PA, right, which has been undermined and liberalized. I don't really love the PA. And
Yeah,
then
you see what I'm
there's
saying? So there really
Liberalize. I don't know what the fuck that means, but okay.
isn't a. You're about to say two. Like there is not a recognized authority over the
Well,
Palestinian.
the PA is recognized, just to be clear. It is recognized.
It is
under
recognized, but you
international
don't necessarily like it, correct?
law. No, obviously not.
Yeah, so it's
But
like
if we want to give, if we wanted to give
body.
F-35s to the PA, I want it, you know, bitch and melon.
Okay, so,
just
so you'd be okay with recognizing the Palestinian Authority as the governing body?
We already do. That's already the international law.
No, but I mean
Not
in the situation of
really.
granting them weapons and shit.
Oh damn, this guy is crazy unique. This guy has like he's obviously like a super Marxist guy, so he's got all the Marxist talking points, but he doesn't know like the correct talking points for Israel-Palestine. The Marxist perspective on Israel-Palestine is that the PA is actually not the governing body of the Palestinians, that rather the Hamas would be, if anything else, or some other local governing body would have to be voted on and elected, because the Palestinian Authority has just been created to be a subservient security force for the IDF, and that's why Netanyahu enjoys and everybody else enjoys the PA's existence. You're supposed to hate the PA. That's supposed to be the lefty talking point. But I don't know, this guy doesn't engage with like the lefty version of Israel-Palestine directly. He just relies on the general Marxist points. But I've never in my life heard like an ML type or an anti-Western type person support the Palestinian Authority. Normally they all fucking hate it, which is interesting. I've never heard that take before.
Yeah, look, if we gave them nukes and F-35s, yeah, I'd be down. Why is that ridiculous? Israel has
Nukes?
F-35s and nukes.
Yeah,
Israel
look at the
has
shit
nukes.
they're doing. They fucking suck.
Yeah, but the question, this is the
Like,
thing,
it's
you're not
like
actually taking
imagine
the issue at hand.
imagine there is a group of people fucking fighting in a bar, and then you give one side guns and shit, and then you give the other side.
Well, doesn't Israel already have nukes?
Guns, and everyone's gonna fucking die.
Well,
Like,
if
this
you
is the
only
most
give- but the
ineffective
thing is-
foreign
the thing is,
policy
if only
ever.
if only one side has guns, you certainly know what happens.
Yes,
right?
I agree, which is why you should probably
Which
engage
is
in
the
coercive
situation.
diplomacy to bring Israel to its knees and hopefully stop its offensive and maybe force them to pay the financial burden of rebuilding Gaza and I guess not intervening when it comes to facilitating, on the other hand, the construction of an actual comprehensive Palestinian state. But the idea of me
That would be all
recognizing
of
these
Israel, by the
realities...
way.
What?
An actual comprehensive Palestinian state would be 100% of the land.
Yeah, but
currently
okay,
occupied.
yeah, and then just
Yep,
fuck yeah, just
sure.
everybody have everybody kill each other because it's like cool, moral, and base.
Wait,
I'm
this
sorry
is-
to break
this
it
is
to
the
you.
thing, though, David.
I'm sorry.
David, your just design
I'm
is just
sorry.
pragmatic.
No,
It's
it's
the
like
way-
it's absolutely ridiculous. No, I do not support Israel's existence.